Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello, here's your latest weather update from the Met Office for GB News. Over the next few days, we'll see some rain at times, often quite blustery, and things will turn colder, albeit for a time, during the early part of the coming week. Low pressure's anchored towards the northwest of the UK at the moment, fairly tightly packed isobars, indicating those fairly blustery winds, and this weather front starting to move in from the far west there across Ireland and Northern Ireland. And we'll see outbreaks of rain here during the evening, some of that rain quite heavy, working from west to east. Towards the southeast, we hold on to mostly fine weather overnight, quite a bit of cloud around, but elsewhere it will go downhill. Outbreaks of rain moving in from the south and west, and again, some of that rain turning quite heavy, particularly across parts of England, Wales and Scotland into the early hours. By the end of the night, some clear weather towards the far northwest. And wherever you are, it's a mild and frost-free night. As for Sunday, well, unfortunately, it's an unsettled day to come. Bands of rain moving from west to east across all parts of the UK. Certainly to start the day on Sunday, some showery outbreaks of rain across the mainland of Scotland there. One or two brighter breaks in between and quite a mild start to the day as well. For Northern Ireland, not faring too badly. Isolated showers, but some clear or sunny weather developing here during the early part of Sunday. And some clear to sunny weather across parts of Wales and the southwest, again with one or two showers around to start the day on Sunday. Further east and southeast, though, some more persistent bands of rain moving from west to east. And on the whole, it's a pretty unsettled day to come across the UK. Further bands of rain will work in from west to east across all areas through the day, coupled with quite blustery winds, particularly towards the north at first. Here we'll see gales for a time. In between those rain bands, there will be some sunshine, and that will help to lift temperatures into the low to mid-teens Celsius. Quite a mild afternoon to come. Temperatures up in the north up 12 Celsius, down towards the south there 14, even 15 degrees. 15 is 59 in Fahrenheit. Further bands of showery rain coming from the west during the evening, and notice the wind starting to turn into a northerly direction from the north later in the day. That's a sign of things to come during the early part of next week. A colder spell developing, some sunshine, yes, but some frost, even a bit of snow towards the north, before things start to turn milder again from the west by the middle of the week.
Even though we'll see a cloudy start, it'll be a bright outlook for the rest of the day. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
It's the biggest, greatest Great British giveaway so far, with your chance to win a spectacular £50,000 in tax-free cash. 2025 could be amazing, with plenty of treats, holidays and fun on the horizon. How would you enjoy that cash? £50,000 will make someone our biggest ever winner. For your chance to win, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. You can call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB10 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 31st of January. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get the book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hello, good afternoon and welcome to GB News. We are live on TV, online and on digital radio. I'm Nana Akua. And for the next few hours, me and my panel will be taking on some of the big topics hitting the headlines right now. This show is all about opinion. It's mine, it's theirs, and of course it's yours. We'll be debating, discussing, and at times we will disagree, but no one will be cancelled. So joining me today, political commentator Andy Williams and also broadcaster and columnist Lizzie Cundy. Coming up in my niggle at 4, I take on Louise Haigh head on. There's more to this than meets the eye. If nothing's changed, why should she have resigned? Apparently, according to her, she told Keir Starmer everything in 2020, but recollections may vary. So do you trust Sir Keir Starmer's judgment? I've got to pull up an X asking just that.
The game is up. You cannot be a lawmaker and a lawbreaker.
So if that's the case, why did he give her a job in the first place? Then, in my Great British Debate this hour, I'm asking, do you worry an assisted dying bill could be open to abuse? Now, the legislation cleared its first hurdle after the Commons voted by a majority of 55 in favour. What is your view? Then, in difficult conversations as World AIDS Day approaches, I'll be joined by a British gay human rights activist, Philip Baldwin. He was just 24 when he was diagnosed with HIV. And Prince William let slip some personal news at the Tusk Conservation Awards this week. And 11 will be here to bring us up to date with all things royal. But before we get started, let's get your latest news with Lewis Mackenzie.
Thank you very much, Nana. Good afternoon. It's just after 3 o'clock. Here are your latest headlines from the GB Newsroom. Assisted dying could become legal in England and Wales after the bill was backed by MPs in a historic vote.
The ayes to the right, 330. The noes to the left, 275. The ayes have it, and look!
Kim Leadbeater's bill received 330 ayes compared to 275 noes at its second reading in the House of Commons, a majority of 55, with the Prime Minister, Sir Keir Starmer, among those who voted in favour of the bill. It would allow adults with just 6 months left to live to request medical assistance to end their lives. Kim Leadbeater says there is absolutely still a lot of work to do on assisted dying proposals, and slight changes to the bill are part of the process. Last night's result means the legislation will now progress to the committee stage for scrutiny, with the Lords also being given opportunities to express their views on the measures before it potentially becomes law. President Volodymyr Zelensky has suggested that parts of Ukraine under his control should be taken under the umbrella of NATO to try and stop the hot phase of the war. During an interview, the Ukrainian president was asked whether he would accept NATO membership, but only on the territory that Kyiv currently holds. He said he would, but only if NATO membership was offered to the whole of Ukraine within its internationally recognised borders first. However, so far, President Putin has given no indication that he's abandoned his desire to subjugate Ukraine in its entirety. Meanwhile, last night, the Ukrainian foreign minister urged his NATO counterparts to issue an invitation to Kyiv at a meeting in Brussels this week to join the Western Military Alliance. Further accusations have been made against TV presenter Greg Wallace in the wake of his stepping away from hosting MasterChef while a review into complaints is carried out. Penny Lancaster is prepared to speak with authorities regarding her experiences with Mr. Wallace on Celebrity MasterChef following his recent departure. The Sun reports 3 different women are now also accusing Mr. Wallace of groping. Production company Banjay UK says it's launched an external review with Wallace fully cooperating during the investigation. His lawyers insist the claims are entirely false, saying the suggestion that Wallace, who has presented the popular BBC One cooking show alongside John Turode since 2005, engages in behaviour of sexually harassing nature was entirely false. A memorial service has been held today for former First Minister of Scotland, Alex Salmond. His wife of more than 40 years and supporters arranged a remembrance service for him on St Andrew's Day. Mr Salmond died last month in North Macedonia at the age of 69. He was at a conference when he suffered a heart attack and was buried in a private family ceremony near his home in Aberdeenshire at the end of October. A plane which experienced a serious incident in October of last year is said to have nearly 200 people on board at risk of developing hypoxia, a potentially fatal condition. The aircraft was en route to Kos in Greece after departing Manchester Airport when an oversight from both pilots led to two crucial engine systems not being turned on, resulting in the loss of pressure within the cabin. A report from the Air Accidents Investigations Branch says the loss of pressure could be significant enough to affect cognitive performance. 3 days later, the same aircraft veered off the runway at Leeds Bradford Airport. GB News has contacted TUI for comment. Today marks 150 years since the birth of Winston Churchill. Born in 1874, the wartime Prime Minister led the country during its darkest hour. Churchill led Britain to victory in World War II over Adolf Hitler's Nazi Germany. And finally, more than 100 dogs dressed in Christmas jumpers joined a festival parade in central London in support of rescue charities. An estimated 130 pets made their way from St James's Park down the Mall towards Buckingham Palace with their owners this morning. The event was organised by Rescue Dogs of London and Friends to raise funds for Hungry Hearts Dog Rescue and Zem Rescues, which rehome dogs from overseas. Prizes were, of course, given to the best-dressed pets in Green Park next to the palace. Well, those have been your latest GB News headlines for now. I'm Lewis Mackenzie. There's more from me in half an hour's time.
Thank you, Lewis. Welcome. It's just fast approaching 8 minutes after 3 o'clock. This is GB News. We're live on TV, online and on digital radio. I'm Nana Akua. Coming up, we'll be crossing live to Newbury, where any minute now the winner of the Coral Gold Cup will be revealed. Jack Carson is on the ground ready to bring us the latest reaction. Then, in the Great British Debate this hour, I'm asking, do you worry an assisted dying bill could be open to abuse? The legislation cleared its first hurdle after the Commons voted by a majority of 55 in favour. Then, from there, another Great British Debate. I'll be asking, should Louise Haigh have resigned? Apparently, according to her, she told Sir Keir Starmer everything in 2020, but recollections may vary. Prince William, let slip some personal news at the Tusk Conservation Awards this week. And 11 will be here to bring us up to date with all things royal. That is coming up. As ever, send me your thoughts, post your comments at gbnews.com/your say. Right, so the Coral Winter Festival is taking place at Newbury Racecourse today. The festival is set to feature one of the country's most prestigious jump races in the racing calendar, the Coral Gold Cup. Our reporter Jack Carson is there right now. So, Jack Carson, talk to me about this race and why it's so important. And have we got any news yet?
Well, you've just missed the big roar of the crowd because we've just got the winner of the Gold Cup in the race which everyone's been waiting for today. And Can Do Kid has won the 3 o'clock, the Gold Cup here at Newbury. You know, it's been a fantastic atmosphere, 12,000 people watching on. And actually, funny enough, we spoke to Paul Nicholls, Can Do Kid's trainer, a little bit earlier on. He was telling us that he was feeling a little bit confident. Our racing expert that's with us for the day, of course, friend of the channel as well, Phil Davis. I mean, we spoke to Paul Nicholls. He was feeling a little bit confident, maybe hadn't had the greatest start, with the earlier races today, but, he's pulled it out of the bag really right at the end there.
He saved the best till last, hasn't he? But GB News viewers get all the best information, don't they? We spoke to Paul Nicholls earlier. He said he was confident of a big run, and Can Do Kid's just gone and won the big race of the day. Second was Broadway Boy, again really well fancied, and third, which we mentioned earlier this morning, Victorino came from a mile back to finish third. So all the first three were all fancied horses, but Paul Nicholls, 14 times champion trainer. That's why he's 14 times champion trainer, because he can pull them out of the fire like that.
Well, this is it, there's so many factors, I guess, that come into a race. You can't help things like the weather and the way the ground is, but I guess you can prepare a horse in a way which means, it can deal with every situation and deal with, whether it's a tight race and whether you need that last little bit, on the final length. And, we've seen just there, it wasn't really close at the end, started to pull out a bit of a lead by the time they got to the line.
Yeah, I mean, look, Paul Nicholls has got gallops that are really, really steep. He gets his horses really, really fit, and he's renowned for being a brilliant target trainer. If he targets a horse at a particular race, you can be absolutely sure it will be 100% cherry ripe for that particular race. This horse has been laid out for this race by Paul Nicholls. It's been absolutely as fit as a flea, and it's won fairly easily in the end. It could go on to better things.
Right, Phil, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been fantastic to have you as our racing expert here at Newbury. It's been a fantastic atmosphere, and there we go, Can Do Kid winning the Gold Cup here at Newbury.
All right, Jack Carson, thank you very much. If you just tuned in, welcome. It's fast approaching 11 minutes after 3 o'clock. This is GB News. We are Britain's news channel. Now, of course, the big news yesterday, assisted dying is one step closer to becoming legal in England and Wales after MPs backed the bill in an historic vote. The vote followed 4.5 hours of debate, which I personally don't think is long enough for such an important issue. There were only 330 MPs voting in favour and just 275 opposing it. So joining me now is Roger Green, Deputy Chief Executive Officer of bereavement charity At a Loss. OK, so I want to get your thoughts on this, Roger. Do you feel that this assisted dying bill is the right thing and that it went the right way yesterday?
Well, yeah, I mean, just to make it clear at the beginning that as a charity At a Loss, we're really about bereavement support. So to be honest with you, we're taking a kind of a neutral view around the causes of the death, and assisted dying is a cause of death, much like other causes of death, natural causes or otherwise. So I think it's important to state that from the outset. In terms of the bill itself, what it clearly aims to do is it's aimed at those specifically who are dying, and to make that pathway much easier and more peaceful for them. And because of that, it does have stringent safeguards around it from the learning in other parts of the world. And our point around grief and bereavement is that when it is, if you like, planned in some ways in that way, or it is a peaceful death, that makes the grief itself much easier. Traumatic deaths are very hard to grieve, whereas peaceful deaths, family or carers have been taken into account and they've had their opportunities to say goodbyes and conversations that have needed to take place, that makes grief that much easier. Because what is absolutely certain is that in these circumstances, there will be grief and there will be a sense of bereavement for lots of people associated with the individual concerned. But in that respect, what we're looking for, I guess, is through the committee and the Lord stages for the bill to be developed, because what it doesn't do at the moment is take account of the considerations of the family or carers. And we think that's a really important bit of safeguard to build in, but also to enable their grief and the experience of bereavement to be that much better. I mean, let's face it, death is death, and it will generate grief. It will generate that kind of sense of bereavement. But when people have had some say in the way of that, not necessarily having the final say or whatever, but an engagement in it along the way, we think that is really important to bring into the conversation. We'd like to see some safeguards built in around that.
Yeah, you said that we'd like to see some safeguards. If we are going to do this sort of thing, I feel it's a little back to front, don't you? You're bringing in something where, well, the safeguards are absolutely not in place. The CPS is not in place, the Crown Prosecution Service. They can't get anything done within 6 months. So I'm wondering, and if you've ever used the Crown Prosecution Service or any specific thing, so for example the family courts, you'll be lucky if the judge even actually reads what you have put in place, and I know from personal experience. So if you're saying that, I'm wondering, you mentioned safeguards, surely they should be the priority first before the bill?
Absolutely, there should be safeguards in place. The system itself needs to be well established to be able to deal with those safeguards. And we talk, I mean, there's been a lot of debate, for example, hasn't there, around the whole role of palliative care. Our point would be that, I mean, as I've said earlier, we're kind of neutral around our stance on the bill. But with that neutrality, because our job, our role as a charity is around bereavement support and supporting people in whatever circumstances the death might be. And this is another circumstance for death. So those safeguards and processes absolutely need to be built into place. The system having the capacity to deliver them, of course, is then a responsibility of Parliament to deliver. And there has to be an accountability of that to make sure that, yes, it is done in the right way.
OK, all right, Roger, thank you for your thoughts. Appreciated that. Really good to talk to you. Thank you so much. That is, of course, Roger Green. He's the Deputy Chief Executive Officer of Bereavement Charity At a Loss. Well, joining me now is writer Jenny Holland. Jenny, you've heard what Roger had to say. He said that they're not really taking a stance. He said it's neutral, but to me, he didn't sound neutral. It sounded like he's saying that if people have a better death in terms of some assistance, then everybody around will feel better because they're all kind of forewarned and forearmed. So to me, that sounded slightly in favour of it. But Jenny, where do you stand with it?
Well, on that particular point, I think that's kind of an odd idea that, you know, you can micromanage this very painful process of losing a loved one. My own father died of cancer 20 years ago. And whilst in some ways it happened quite quickly over a matter of 2 short months, you know, a death is a death. And while they're mitigating circumstances, it's never going to be something that the state should have a say in. That, to me, is the biggest problem with this. I mean, you know, whilst someone like Roger is coming from a place of compassion, I think that the bill itself, the entire movement being pushed, in fact, by the government, is just the most glaring, honking, screaming red flag. Because what you have is a conflict of interest. You have a large, powerful, extremely well-funded in many ways government institution that is not able to meet its primary duty of care. And you're giving them the power then to offer as a solution killing its own patients. So instead of being able to being given power to cure them, they're going to be now you're giving the NHS the option to suggest politely that they just kill themselves. I think this is a disaster.
Do you think that could suggest lack of investment in conditions that could potentially be cured if we were to invest time and energy in them? But if people can just go, oh, well, you know, there is the option that you could just get out of this because the ending isn't great, that actually a lot of medical companies and people like that won't invest in trying to keep people alive.
I mean, you'd like to think that they will anyway, because it's in everyone's best interest. But I think that it's a managerial issue, and death should never, ever, ever, ever become a managerial issue. That's a dystopian horror story. The process itself. I mean, what I find puzzling too is why is it a 6 months diagnosis? Surely 6 months is something that let the process unfold naturally, offer support, whether through charities and palliative care, or better yet, state-funded sort of access to the healthcare system that which we all pay an enormous amount of taxes for, and do it in this very kind of natural way. I don't understand why we have to take steps to actively rubber stamp and sort of shuffle along in a bureaucratic process. Death. This is crazy. This is crazy.
Well, somebody, I mean, they would argue that actually you're sparing somebody the suffering. And if it were an animal, we would do the same thing. Look, you've got about 30 seconds if you could let me know your thoughts on that.
Well, we're not. I mean, we're not animals. We're biologically speaking, perhaps. But I mean, I would just point to places like Canada and Oregon that started out with very high-minded, compassion-based arguments, and now you have people who can't pay rent or who've had trans surgeries that went wrong, and the medical solution offered to them is literally kill yourself, and that's horrifying, and it should never happen.
All right. Well, listen, Jenny, thank you very much. Really good to talk to you. That is writer Jenny Holland with her views. Well, you're with me. I'm Nana Akua. This is GB News. We're live on TV, online and on digital radio. Coming up, should Louise Haigh have resigned? But next, do you worry an assisted dying bill could be open to abuse? This is GB News.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
GB News Breakfast. Every day from 6 a.m.
Does it make you all nostalgic? Do you miss the jungle looking at that?
I do, actually. I mean, it was one of the highlights of my career. I really enjoyed it because I'm like a little boy. I love being outdoors and taking the mick and arguing, and I love all that, so that's what it's all about. It's so much emotional stuff because food plays so much a part in being in the jungle, and it really gets your sort of mental bits going, it is I would love to go back. I mean, maybe there's a show called Geriatrics in the Jungle. I think that might be a good one.
And did you ever have to shout those immortal words, I'm a celebrity, get me out of here?
No, I didn't. I think Daniela Westbrook was the only one who bottled out. Most of us stuck it to the end, well, as far as the end as we could get. It was, we had something called the Terrible Trio. It was me, Phil Tufnell, and Linda Barker. And we were the late night drinkers and smokers in those days. We just took the mick out of everything, really.
And I was just saying before we came to you, Anthony, there's something a bit perverse about how we all enjoy, my kids as well, absolute hysterics at some people's clear distress. I mean, on the opening show, this guy, Dean, who we're watching now, they were having to eat, I don't want to use the word at this hour of the morning, but part of a male anatomy combined with some eyeballs mushed up into a smoothie. Yeah. And he was drinking it. He said, my IBS! My IBS! And we were just laughing.
Play havoc with
It's so weird, isn't it, that we find that so funny?
I'm looking at the two Barrys, Barry McGuigan and GK Barry as my sort of favourites, if you want.
GB News, the People's Channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/your say. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Good afternoon, 22 minutes after 3 o'clock. Welcome, this is GB News. We are Britain's news channel. I'm Nana Akua. Don't forget to send me your thoughts, post your comments, gbnews.com/your say. But now, it is time for the Great British Debate this hour. I'm asking, do you worry that an assisted dying bill could be open to abuse? Now, MPs voted in principle to allow the terminally ill to get help ending their lives, with 330 MPs backing the move. But doubts remain over the safeguards for the vulnerable. So for the Great British Debate this hour, I'm asking, do you worry an assisted dying bill could be open to abuse? Well, joining me now, broadcaster and columnist Lizzie Cundy, and also political commentator Andy Williams. All right, Lizzie Cundy, I'm going to start with you. Assisted dying, a lot of people, Kim Ledbetter, punching the air, getting all excited, really pleased the legislation has gone through. I'm concerned. What are your thoughts?
It's actually, I watched it and I was very emotional listening to all the stories. I really was, and I'm myself am a Christian. I believe God gave us life. And I, as you know, was with my friend who sadly passed away in my arms at the age of 27. And she had cystic fibrosis and had the most awful pain. Had, lung infection, lung collapses, had to do nebulizers 3 times a day. And life was really tough. And she was in terrible pain. But she used to say to me, each breath is a gift, and and she wanted to live. So for me, hearing the stories is very emotional. And I've also had another friend that had terrible cancer and just didn't want her kids to see her like that and wished to pass away. So it's very, it pulls at your heartstrings, because what would you do in their place? But something in me just is worried about this, and I think it's been rushed too quickly. And what worries me, particularly in the elderly, if they feel they're a burden to their families and say, look, maybe this will be the answer, so I won't be a burden to you anymore and be costing you. So I think we need to have more robust controls in this, and that is my worry.
Right, but what you're the person who had died of cystic fibrosis, very sad.
Yeah.
How long ago was that?
So, this is now 15 years ago, and there isn't a day I don't go without thinking of her.
Because now they have an incredible drug for people with cystic fibrosis, which can almost make them as though they haven't got it. And I know somebody who's taking that drug. And the thing is, if this person had gone with this assisted dying thing, had they been in that window where that drug was invented, they would have missed the opportunity to be...
Exactly. We have the opportunity where, they may have said, look, we'll go for this option and I don't want to be in pain anymore, but then they would have missed out on having this wonder drug that could have made their life so much more bearable. Yeah. But I've seen real pain and I've seen real death. And for me, watching this, I was very, very emotional. And I feel emotional now talking about it. But it worries me, and I feel there needs to be more robust controls in this.
Andy Williams.
So instinctively, this is something I'm in favour of. I think there are some limited circumstances where people who are terminally ill and for whom there's no way back and who are in immense pain should have at least that option if the right safeguards are put in place. So on paper, I was looking at this issue when it first came up and thought this is something I'd be enthusiastically backing. Actually, I do have concerns, some of which Lizzie's touched on, which is that firstly, there hasn't been a great deal of debate among parliamentarians. 5 hours is no time. Private Members Bill. One of my former colleagues, my first boss, who is like the leading legislative expert in the UK, she has been saying very, very forcefully, you can't, 5 hours of debate is no time at all, and that a Private Members Bill is not the right mechanism.
It's about a couple of minutes
for this bill. Yeah, a couple of minutes each for anybody who wants to speak. So if I was an MP, would I have voted for this? I would have been really, really torn, because you're not voting on the principle, you're voting on the actuality of the bill. My understanding is that the safeguards in this bill are stronger and more robust than...
Two GPs, 2 doctors.
2 doctors and... 2 doctors and a judge. I think I'm right in saying that you have to...
Use the Crown Prosecution Service?
Well, I haven't had to, no.
Okay,
but I'm obviously aware of the absolute state it's in.
It's actually impossible, this bill, and I'm dead set against it, and no pun intended, to be honest with you, because I'm listening and I'm thinking, they know and we know that the Crown Prosecution Service is not up to scratch to even handle this. It takes a minimum of at least 6 months to get anything through. So I'm wondering how on earth they are going to manage somebody who may have 6 months to live. And let's not forget that a doctor cannot accurately predict how long someone has left to live.
So I think that's a really good point, and actually one of the major objections to the bill is, well, our court system can't handle it, our health service can't handle it, we're introducing a new burden on doctors. I know that doctors won't be forced to comply, it'll be an opt-in, but you're introducing a whole new set of burdens on 2 systems that are already creaking. What I would say to that is, you can't just use the excuse of having broken systems not to do.
Well, no,
I know, and that's what Wes.
But that's a reality. You can't put these things in place if you haven't got this.
And that's what Wes Streeting has been saying, right? So again, I say I'm torn, but I don't think it's good enough to just go, well, that's not working, so we can't do this. So it's really complicated.
I think Nana's got a great point. The 6 months, terminally ill. My friend, who I've just spoke about, was told she'd only lived till 14. She lived on till 27 years old. So you can't put a month or a time on someone's life, because everyone is different, and this is that. And it is a slippery slope. I'm sorry, and I just feel we're going to lose control, and I'm just worried for those that are going to feel a burden on their family and are going to use this.
I worry about that as well, and I think then that's why it comes back to it's really important now, because this bill hasn't passed. That was obviously a huge hurdle it cleared, but the next stage is critical, which is looking at
Andy,
putting the safeguards in place. If it doesn't, then it shouldn't pass.
Safeguards need to be put in place beforehand and thorough and robust. What about the fact that it's very expansive? So it starts off as a small thing, but then before you know it, it starts to encompass anybody who's, got this, or anybody who's been told that, or... What about that?
Well, I don't think
that is the model. That is what's happening in the places where it is allowed.
Yes, but this bill is stricter than in almost any other. No, but it is. It is. This is not something that anybody will be able to take advantage of, if that's the right way of putting it. No, it's not. Because there are limited circumstances. There is a time frame.
That's my point.
There are all sorts of hoops. People will. Well, they could.
And in every place that this has been introduced, the circumstances have expanded. And if we're going to
sorry, Nana, that's not true. The Health Select Committee.
Give me a place where it's happening, where this hasn't started to encompass more.
So, as I understand it, Australia is a good model, but I think it's a more liberal.
But the point yes, but it started with something, and now it's expanding to include others.
Well, the Health Select Committee published a report which said that actually there is no jurisdiction where the original terms of the legislation in those jurisdictions has significantly changed.
Well, I beg to differ with what you're saying there, because basically what the terms of the legislation probably were very loose in the first place, which is why, if that's the case, that's why it's justified.
What I think we really should be looking at is palliative care and looking at that. And I've seen it. I've been in hospices where people are in terrible pain and they've not been able to get that pain relief to get them through, on their last days and hours. And that's what's important, and that's what needs to be looked at.
I think you need to get real about this country. I mean, we are very disorganised. Something like this coming in without the relevant checks and balances, 2 doctors and somebody else, I'm not convinced, really not convinced. And the fact that people are punching the air that it's happened, and you've got Kim Ledbetter, saying, right, we're all, I think that before we do this, we need a long, hard think about the things that support this bill and whether they're actually able to support it and whether the bill is a reality. But what do you think? GBNews.com/you'll say. You're with me. I'm Nana Akua. This is GB News. We're live on TV, online and on digital radio. Next, my Great British Debate, and I'm asking, should Louise Haigh have resigned? But first, let's get your latest news headlines with Lewis McKenzie.
Thank you very much, Nana. Good afternoon. It's just after 3:30. Here are your top stories from the GB Newsroom. Well, as you've just been hearing, assisted dying could become legal in England and Wales after the bill was backed by MPs in a historic vote.
The ayes to the right, 330. The noes to the left, 275. The ayes have it, and look!
Kim Ledbeater's bill received 330 ayes compared to 275 noes at its second reading in the House of Commons. That's a majority of 55 MPs, with Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer among those who voted in favour of the bill. It would allow adults with just 6 months left to live to request medical assistance to end their lives. Kim Ledbeater says that there is still absolutely lots of work to do on assisted dying proposals, and slight changes to the bill are part and parcel of the process. Last night's result means the legislation will now progress to the committee stage for scrutiny, with the Lords also being given opportunities to express their views on the measures before it potentially becomes law. President Volodymyr Zelensky has suggested that parts of Ukraine under his control should be taken under the umbrella of NATO to try and stop the hot phase of the war. During an interview, the Ukrainian president was asked whether he would accept NATO membership, but only on the territory that Kyiv currently holds. He said he would, but only if NATO membership was offered to the whole of Ukraine within its internationally recognised borders first. However, so far, President Putin has given no indication that he's abandoned his desire to subjugate Ukraine entirely. A memorial service has been held today for former First Minister of Scotland Alex Salmond. His wife of more than 40 years and supporters arranged a remembrance service for him on St Andrew's Day. Mr Salmond died last month in North Macedonia at the age of 69. He was at the conference when he suffered a heart attack. Salmond was buried in a private family ceremony nearby his home in Aberdeenshire at the end of October. Well, those have been your latest GB News headlines for now. I'm Lewis Mackenzie. There's more from me in half an hour's time.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Hello, here's your latest weather update from the Met Office for GB News. Over the next few days, we'll see some rain at times, often quite blustery, and things will turn colder, albeit for a time, during the early part of the coming week. Low pressure's anchored towards the northwest of the UK at the moment, fairly tightly packed isobars, indicating those fairly blustery winds, and this weather front starting to move in from the far west there across Ireland and Northern Ireland. And we'll see outbreaks of rain here during the evening, some of that rain quite heavy, working from west to east. Towards the southeast, we hold on to mostly fine weather overnight, quite a bit of cloud around, but elsewhere it will go downhill. Outbreaks of rain moving in from the south and west, and again, some of that rain turning quite heavy, particularly across parts of England, Wales and Scotland into the early hours. By the end of the night, some clear weather towards the far northwest. And wherever you are, it's a mild and frost-free night. As for Sunday, well, unfortunately, it's an unsettled day to come. Bands of rain moving from west to east across all parts of the UK. Certainly to start the day on Sunday, some showery outbreaks of rain across the mainland of Scotland there. One or two brighter breaks in between and quite a mild start to the day as well. For Northern Ireland, not faring too badly. Isolated showers, but some clear or sunny weather developing here during the early part of Sunday. And some clear to sunny weather across parts of Wales and the southwest, again with one or two showers around to start the day on Sunday. Further east and southeast, though, some more persistent bands of rain moving from west to east. And on the whole, it's a pretty unsettled day to come across the UK. Further bands of rain will work in from west to east across all areas through the day, coupled with quite blustery winds, particularly towards the north at first. Here we'll see gales for a time. In between those rain bands, there will be some sunshine, and that will help to lift temperatures into the low to mid-teens Celsius. Quite a mild afternoon to come. Temperatures up in the north up 12 Celsius, down towards the south there 14, even 15 degrees. 15 is 59 in Fahrenheit. Further bands of showery rain to come in from the west during the evening, and notice the wind starting to turn into a northerly direction from the north later in the day. That's a sign of things to come during the early part of next week. A colder spell developing, some sunshine, yes, but some frost, even a bit of snow towards the north, before things start to turn milder again from the west by the middle of the week.
Go to gbnews.com/shop now and take advantage of our biggest ever Black Friday sale with 25% off all items across our store and free shipping on orders worth £60 or more. There's never been a better time to grab something for the GB News fan in your life. From our signature clothing to drinkware, gifts, accessories and much, much more, you'll find the perfect present this festive season. Use the code BLACKFRIDAY25 on checkout at gbnews.com/shop for our best ever Black Friday deals.
Mark Dolan tonight is your weekend dose of news, debate and entertainment.
This sounds like a wild conspiracy theory.
Don't miss My Big Opinion. Mark Meets at My Take at 10.
Democracy is a funny old thing.
And we don't do boring, not on my watch. I just won't have it.
Let's go and get another glass of that bubbly. You've earned it.
That's Mark Dolan tonight, Saturday and Sunday, 9 to 11, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. You're with GB News. We're live on TV, online and on digital radio. I'm Nana Akua. If you just tuned in, where have you been? No, sorry, it's early days. I shouldn't get so angry at the beginning of the show. But it's time now for the Great British Debate this hour. And I'm asking, should Louise Haigh have resigned? The Transport Secretary quit her post after it emerged that she had pleaded guilty to a fraud offence a decade ago, where she incorrectly told police that a work mobile phone was stolen, or apparently it had been stolen in a Muggins. We're not the mugs here, but yes, it had been stolen while she was mugged, apparently. And then she realised that it hadn't been stolen and then did not re-inform her workplace, which is, of course, Aviva Insurance, who are quite hot on that, I should imagine. but is there more to this than meets the eye? Because there seemed to be another story around other phones, and it was all about upgrades. And so for the Great British Debate this hour, I'm asking, should she have resigned? And What else was going on there? What do you think? Joining me now, broadcaster and columnist Lizzie Cundy and also political commentator Andy Williams. Andy Williams, I'll come to you first.
Yes.
Louise Haigh, should she have gone?
Yes. She broke the law, that's one thing, and she had declared that it was a...
But it was suspended.
It was a spent conviction, and I think that explains why Keir Starmer was content to appoint her to the shadow cabinet in the first place, because she said, I broke the law, I was convicted, but it was a spent conviction, so that's fine, that's one thing. What has clearly happened here is that, and this is always the downfall of politicians like Louise Haigh, she didn't give the full facts at the time, and now new facts have emerged, and Keir Starmer and Morgan McSweeney, actually, who I think drove a lot of this decision, to say, yes, she resigned, but she was sort of told, you're resigning, otherwise we're going to sack you.
Do we know more about these new facts?
Well, according to The Times, and I think The Times and Sky have slightly different accounts, but The Times said that 2 of her colleagues at Aviva, which is where she worked when this happened, said that she had sort of mislaid or pretended that she'd mislaid her phone in order to get a better upgrade for her work phone. So I don't know whether that is the fact, but apparently that's what 2 of her colleagues have said. And if that is something new that has emerged and therefore she misled her employer, she then misled Keir Starmer, the Prime Minister, about that, of course she has to go.
I'd like to get hold of those 2 friends, I really would. Lizzie Cundy.
Well, there we go. I mean, it's unbelievable, this Labour government. What a start, Andy. Honestly, I can't believe it. They've all got poor integrity, and she's another one who is out of her depth.
I think that's very unfair, Lizzie, to say they've all got poor integrity. I mean, actually, say 2 things. Number one,
Rachel from accounts. Can we talk about her?
I think Rachel Reeves has plenty of integrity. I know you're going to laugh, but I really, really do.
We are all laughing.
I really.
What about her CV though?
What about her CV? It doesn't matter. No, it doesn't.
Of course it does.
No, it
when
doesn't.
you're in government, Andy, it really matters.
No,
and this
it doesn't.
matters
I'm
about
sorry.
Louise.
Let Lizzie finish.
And you know what? Keir Starmer has a lot to blame for, and she should have come clean. She's a convicted fraudster.
Yeah, but
basically.
But to remind you, her conviction is spent. I mean, how long should you be persecuted for a crime?
Exactly.
When you're in government, you have to say the truth. You have to be truthful. This was the party that was on the high horse saying, no more cronyism, we're going to be the policy, no more dishonesty in politics, we're the true party to believe in us, we're honest. It's been lie after lie after lie, from Lord Alley to Freebiegate to Rachel from accounts, and now Louise Haigh. Sorry,
I think
Andy,
you have to
that's
look. I think you have to look at each of these cases on the facts. Now, clearly, no, but she had a spent conviction, and I think actually, in the scheme of things, in itself, was that a massive problem? Should that have precluded her from being appointed to cabinet? I would say no.
Depends what it is.
Exactly.
And to me, saying that you've lost a mobile phone and then suddenly the phone arrives and then you don't declare it back and then you actually end up pleading guilty to it, which she then said that she wished she hadn't pleaded guilty. I would say personally that is not good enough.
Well, we're in agreement that actually, when further facts came to light, she was absolutely right to resign. Now, I think you just have to look at these on a case-by-case basis. But Keir Starmer wasn't told the full facts in the beginning.
Yeah, but it's irrelevant. I would... No, but if I had been Keir Starmer and one of my potential MPs, and bear in mind it's a cabinet MP, had told me this story, I would be... I mean, he was head of the CPS and all these sorts of things. He should have made much further investigations into what she's telling him, and he could have easily done that. And I don't think either he did or he didn't, or he's not telling the truth. But either way...
I smell a rat.
Either way, she would not be a minister in my cabinet.
Well, I mean, and now she isn't. So I think I put this in the bucket of things that don't. That it actually, do you know what? Doesn't matter. It really doesn't. It really doesn't, because she's gone, and we've got a new transport secretary who's more capable and frankly is going to make more of an impact than Louise Haigh anyway.
That was a huge question over Keir Starmer's judgment.
I don't think it does. I'm sorry, I don't think it does create a huge question over Keir Starmer's, because it's not. Because it's just irrelevant to people's lives. It's irrelevant to. It says nothing at all.
This is where you're so wrong, and this is where the Labour Party get it so wrong, because they don't read the room. They always say, oh, it doesn't matter. They sweep it under the carpet. Let's move on. They're saying what they did with Freebiegate. It does matter. People do care about this. And let's be honest, this isn't the first time. She was the one that spouted off about P&O ferries.
Well, that
lost, millions in investment.
Well, I agree with you on that. I agree with you on that, Lizzie. And actually, if we're being frank about it, and actually it will, in the next few days, and it's already coming out, the real reason reason she's gone is that she was not a reliable minister. She shouldn't have done that. She made a huge mistake in that respect.
And has Keir Starmer's judgment appalling?
No, I
That's
don't agree.
Our Prime
I
Minister.
don't agree with that. I actually think Keir Starmer has a really strong track record of binning people at the first, one strike and you're out.
Oh, what about Jazz Athwell then?
Oh, well...
Well, why is he not gone? If he's so good at binning people one strike and you're out, there's many strikes there. What about him?
It's a completely different thing because...
Why?
Because...
He's a rogue landlord.
Let me finish. Jazz Athwell is a backbench MP. Now, I think the way he has behaved as a rogue landlord, which is absolutely a fact, is disgusting.
So why should Keir Starmer not have binned him? We're talking about binning people, and he's very efficient at it. You said it yourself. It came from your lips.
Yeah.
Jazz Athwell, why is he still in post? You should have gone.
In what post? He's a backbench MP. Well, you can't suspend the whip from everybody who...
It's not everybody, it's somebody.
With all due respect, we're talking about two different things. Ministerial posts, one thing. If Jazz Athwell was a minister, yes, he should be gone. As an MP, you can't suspend the whip from everybody who you think has reprehensible behaviour.
We know what Jazz Athwell has done. In a licensing scheme that he put in place...
I totally agree with you.
He then flouted himself, whilst Angela Rayner's going on about rogue landlords and a housing bill and everything else like that. If Keir Starmer is such a ruthless leader, Jazz Athwell should have had the whip removed a long time ago. Why hasn't he done it?
Because you're talking about a backbench MP.
So
you can't go.
It's not about.
You wouldn't end up with any left. You'd end up with none left, and that's across.
Really?
Listen,
well,
that says it all. Give me a second, Lizzie. It's because that is a cross-party point. You would literally end up with hardly any MPs left if that was the case.
OK, so name another MP that's done something similar to Jazz Athwell in terms of landlord ownership.
Oh, but no, I can't.
Is there?
No, and I totally. We're not disagreeing that is disgraceful.
Well, then he should have the whip removed.
Keir Starmer's judgment is absolutely appalling. For the man that's supposed to have this forensic, great legal brain, that's to know everything, why didn't he do his diligence? Why didn't he do his homework on Louise? Let's be honest about this.
Do you think Keir Starmer spends all of his time doing due diligence?
And
he's quite a busy man.
Well, he was the head of the CPS. So
yeah, but he's not anymore.
You would think that he would have a little bit more due diligence when he's bringing people into his cabinet. And he also has lots of other people that could do the work for him.
Exactly. So why didn't he do that? The man that's supposed to be this great legal brain that looks at every detail, like the forensic man that he is, he hasn't done it.
Well, listen, we will come.
Total letdown.
We will come to the
question on Keir Starmer later. But thank you very much, Lizzie Cundy and also Andy Williams. But next, it's time for our Royal Roundup. Angela Levin will be here to give us the latest from behind the palace walls. Do not go anywhere.
Sunday with Michael Portillo from 11, only on GB News.
Phil Kearsey is bringing a new flavour to the Michelin-starred restaurant Pied à Terre as he becomes its new executive head chef. Customers can expect a menu that showcases modern British cooking accompanied by classical French roots, which uses hyper-seasonal ingredients. What are hyper-seasonal ingredients? That's an interesting phrase.
It's more about just reacting to the seasonality of everything. We like to change the menu all the time. So basically, I surround myself with the best suppliers, and they tell me what's amazing at the moment, and then we try and celebrate that in the restaurant in many different forms, using taste, texture and technique, and just try and celebrate something as humble as a broccoli stem or a cauliflower, using absolutely everything, and making sure we've got an ever-changing menu. So letting the seasons dictate, so it's never boring and we never get menu fatigue.
OK, your career has taken you around the world a bit.
Yeah.
For example, you were in the United States. What did you learn there?
So, every chef I've worked for, it's about to take something from. A lot of chefs will go places and just stay in one establishment and get to the top, and then that's it. I've kind of then went to another chef to learn completely different things. That's the brilliant thing, to be able to surround myself with such amazing chefs throughout my career, because I've learned different things from all of them. And you find out 5 different ways to do something, and you find the way that you like it the best. And it's also about understanding it takes a while to understand how the restaurant is, going through the history of all these amazing chefs that have been before me, the style, because it needs to make sense. You wouldn't have a dish that should be at the Fat Duck and then a dish that should be at the Waterside, you know. You need to make sure that it all makes sense and it goes together with the decor, the service, the wine serving. And so we want to be the restaurant, not that does a little bit of everything, we want to be the best French restaurant in London, you know.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Nightmare commute? Kick it up a gear with GB News Radio. You can listen online and on DAB+ and on the GB News app. We're also on TuneIn and the Radio Player apps. From the school run to rush hour, get revved up with GB News Radio. We are the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/your say. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Welcome back. 49 minutes after 3 o'clock. This is GB News. We are Britain's news channel. We're live on TV, online and on digital radio. Don't forget as well, download the GB News app. You can catch up with all the programmes on the channel. It is completely free. I'm Nana Akua. Now, there's always something going on in the royal household, and this week has been no different. And each Saturday, I love to give you a rundown, and who better to do so than royal biographer Angela Levin. Angela, welcome. Thank you for joining me. Right, Angela, let's start with Harry and Better Up Now. He's paid $1 million a year, but the company has had to sack 100 people, and many of them don't think he does anything at all.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, I think both Harry and Meghan are doing a lot of things that aren't coming off. And I suspect they're getting really fed up with it. And this was one of the things that Harry really enjoyed doing. I was a bit doubtful about it because I think if you want to help people with mental health, you have to be very sure that you are okay yourself. And I think he's been a bit wobbly with that. But he's also been offered by the same company to do a remote lecture as a sort of university for people who would like to talk to him more at length. And he's doing that too within the £1 million. So he's not getting a rise on that. But the other staff are absolutely furious, making a huge fuss because, you know, life everywhere is difficult and money is difficult. And they don't see why they should be sacked when Harry does not do any work. I don't know whether he does or if he doesn't, but this is what they're saying, and they're causing a lot of trouble, I think. If we go on to Meghan, she's also in trouble because, you know, she had, in the beginning of April, this America Riviera orchard lifestyle that she was very, very keen on. And it keeps going back because that she's not allowed to do these things. And so she has got very angry and she hasn't been able to have the trademark done, so she can't sell anything. And she's now asked for another 3 months. I'm not quite sure that's what she should be doing. She should have made a huge effort to get it done. Anyway, she's asked again for another 3 months, and they've said to her they will give her 3 months, but after this they will have to start all over again, which will mean another year. Now, all she had to do was to change the name. They don't want the name because it's too familiar to a name where she lives in Montecito, and she's sticking to that and making life very, very complicated.
But what about the Afghan thing? So the Afghan women said that...
The Afghan women, she spoke to and said that she and Harry were having a special sort of distance, and they were going to do it, and it was a
professional separation, I think.
Professional distance, and that's how they were living at the moment. Well, that to anyone who hears that means goodbye, my partner.
Well, maybe it means work-wise they're not going to do things together, but they two are still together, so it's a professional separation. I mean, I'm just trying to interpret it in a way that doesn't sound like they're splitting up, but maybe that's what they're trying to do as well.
Yes, but if that's the case, why doesn't he go home? He hasn't been home for over 2 months. It must have been virtually 3 months now. And if you actually are together and you want an emotional relationship, then, surely you would pop back, because they were salt and pepper for a long time, and they didn't let each other go, and holding hands and looking starry-eyed in each other's eyes. But if you say you're doing professional distance, that's a very serious thing to say, I think.
Yeah, it doesn't sound good. What about Camilla, though? Because we're running out of time, so I want to get that in.
Camilla is marvellous. She's done a lot to save women from domestic violence, but she's now setting up something to help children. I had no idea that there's a staggering 78% of young people living with domestic abuse. So she's had the idea to have a pop-up room in the classes or outside somewhere where children will go and feel comfortable. She wants young people to run it, because that way it's easier for children to talk to them. And a lot of children today are having terrible trouble with.
We're running out of time. We've got about 10 seconds. Angela Levin, thank you so much. Always a pleasure. Right, next up, my niggle on Louise Haigh. In my view, another shambolic politician, an utter hypocrite. What do you think? Now, let's get the update with your weather.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello, here's your latest weather update from the Met Office for GB News. Over the next few days, we'll see some rain at times, often quite blustery, and things will turn colder, albeit for a time, during the early part of the coming week. Low pressure's anchored towards the northwest of the UK at the moment, fairly tightly packed isobars, indicating those fairly blustery winds, and this weather front starting to move in from the far west there across Ireland and Northern Ireland. And we'll see outbreaks of rain here during the evening, some of that rain quite heavy, working from west to east. Towards the southeast, we hold on to mostly fine weather overnight, quite a bit of cloud around, but elsewhere it will go downhill. Outbreaks of rain moving in from the south and west, and again, some of that rain turning quite heavy, particularly across parts of England, Wales and Scotland into the early hours. By the end of the night, some clear weather towards the far northwest, and wherever you are, it's a mild and frost-free night. As for Sunday, well, unfortunately, it's an unsettled day to come. Bands of rain moving from west to east across all parts of the UK. Certainly to start the day on Sunday, some showery outbreaks of rain across the mainland of Scotland there. One or two brighter breaks in between, and quite a mild start to the day as well. For Northern Ireland, not faring too badly. Isolated showers, but some clear or sunny weather developing here during the early part of Sunday. And some clear to sunny weather across parts of Wales and the southwest, again with one or two showers around to start the day on Sunday. Further east and southeast, though, some more persistent bands of rain moving from west to east. And on the whole, it's a pretty unsettled day to come across the UK. Further bands of rain will work in from west to east across all areas through the day, coupled with quite blustery winds, particularly towards the north at first. Here we'll see gales for a time. In between those rain bands, there will be some sunshine, and that will help to lift temperatures into the low to mid-teens Celsius. Quite a mild afternoon to come. Temperatures up in the north up 12 Celsius, down towards the south there 14, even 15 degrees. 15 is 59 in Fahrenheit. Further bands of showery rain to come in from the west during the evening, and notice the wind starting to turn into a northerly direction from the north later in the day. That's a sign of things to come during the early part of next week. A colder spell developing, some sunshine, yes, but some frost, even a bit of snow towards the north, before things start to turn milder again from the west by the middle of the week.
We can expect clear skies, leading to a light and warm day ahead. Lovely. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
You could be joining the Great British Giveaway list of winners with your chance to grab a fantastic £50,000 in tax-free cash. We've made loads of winners this year, and you could be our next.
Hi, I'm Angela from Wigan, and I won £30,000 with the Great British Giveaway. It happens to people like me.
For your chance to win, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. You can call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge, or post your name and number to GB10 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 31st of January. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Go to gbnews.com/shop now and take advantage of our biggest ever Black Friday sale with 25% off all items across our store and free shipping on orders worth £60 or more. There's never been a better time to grab something for the GB News fan in your life. From our signature clothing to drinkware, gifts, accessories and much, much more, you'll find the perfect present this festive season. Use the code BLACKFRIDAY25 on checkout at gbnews.com/shop for our best ever Black Friday deals.
Welcome to State of the Nation, daily plunge into the stories shaping our country. I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, and Monday to Thursday we bring you the insights, the facts, the truth about how our country is being governed. Because what happens in Downing Street matters down your street. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the argument. We get rid of the disrespect. And then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together and what have we got, in my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michael Portillo. This is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello, good afternoon and welcome to GB News. We are Britain's news channel. We're live on TV, online and on digital radio. I'm Nana Akua. And for the next few hours, me and my panel will be taking on some of the big topics hitting the headlines right now. This show is all about opinion. It's mine, it's theirs, and of course, it's yours. We'll be debating, discussing, and at times we will disagree, but no one will be cancelled. So joining me today, political commentator Andy Williams, also broadcaster and columnist Lizzie Cundy. Coming up in my niggle, I'm going to take on Louise Haigh head on. There's more to this than meets the eye. If nothing's changed, why should she have resigned? Apparently, according to her, she told Keir Starmer everything in 2020, but recollections vary. So do you trust Sir Keir Starmer's judgment? I've got a pull-up on X asking just that.
The game is up. You cannot be a lawmaker and a lawbreaker.
Yeah, if that's the case, why did he give her the job in the first place? Then, in my Great British Debate this hour, I'm asking, should migrants be forced to integrate? Now, this comes as the leading German politician says that migrants will be forced to adopt what he calls Germany's dominant culture if his party wins the country's election in February. Then stay tuned for difficult conversations. It's, of course, World AIDS Day tomorrow, and I'll be joined by British gay human rights activist Philip Baldwin. He was just 24 when he was diagnosed with HIV. And the bloody war in Ukraine grinds on. President Zelensky hints that he would accept a ceasefire with Russia in exchange for NATO membership. But before we get started, let's get your latest news with Lewis Mackenzie.
Thank you very much, Nana. Good afternoon. It's just after 4 o'clock. Here are your top stories from the GB Newsroom. Assisted dying could become legal in England and Wales after the bill was backed by MPs in a historic vote.
The ayes to the right, 330. The noes to the left, 275. The ayes have it, and look!
Kim Leadbeater's bill received 330 ayes compared to 275 noes at its second reading in the House of Commons. That's a majority of 55, with the Prime Minister, Sir Keir Starmer, among those who voted in favour of the bill. It would allow adults with just 6 months left to live to request medical assistance to end their lives. Kim Leadbeater says there is absolutely still a lot of work to do on assisted dying proposals, and slight changes to the bill are part of the process. Last night's result mean the legislation will now progress to the committee stage for scrutiny, with the Lords also to give opportunities to express their views on the measures before it potentially becomes law. President Zelensky has suggested the parts of Ukraine under his control should be taken into NATO's umbrella to try and stop the hot phase of the war. During an interview, the Ukrainian president was asked whether he would accept NATO's membership, but only if the territory that Kyiv currently holds. He said he would, but only if NATO members would be offered to Ukraine with its internationally recognised borders first. However, so far, President Putin has given no indication that he's abandoned his desire to subjugate Ukraine entirely. Meanwhile, last night, the Ukrainian foreign minister urged his NATO counterparts to issue an intervention to Kyiv at its meeting in Brussels this week to join the Western military alliance. Further accusations have been made against TV presenter Greg Wallace in the wake of him stepping away from hosting MasterChef while a review into complaints is carried out. Penny Lancaster is prepared to speak with authorities regarding her experience with Mr. Wallace on Celebrity MasterChef following his recent departure. The Sun reports 3 different women are now also accusing Mr. Wallace of groping. Production company Banijay UK says it's launching an external review, with Wallace fully cooperating during the investigation. His lawyers insist the claims are entirely false. A memorial service has been held today for the former First Minister of Scotland, Alex Salmond. His wife of more than 40 years and supporters arranged a remembrance service for him on St Andrew's Day. Mr. Salmond died last month in North Macedonia at the age of 69. He was at a conference when he suffered a heart attack and was buried in a private family cemetery near his home in Aberdeenshire at the end of October. A plane which experienced a serious incident in October last year is said to have left nearly 200 people on board at risk of developing hypoxia, a potentially fatal condition. The aircraft had been en route to Kos in Greece after departing Manchester Airport when an oversight from both pilots led to 2 crucial engine systems not turning on, resulting in a loss of pressure within the cabin. A report from the Air Accidents Investigation Branch says the loss of pressure could be significant enough to affect cognitive performance. 3 days later, the same aircraft veered off the runway at Leeds Bradford Airport. GB News has contacted TUI for comment. And finally, more than 100 dogs have been dressed up in Christmas jumpers and they've joined their owners in a festival along London's main streets. An estimated 130 pets made their way from St James's Park down the Mall towards Buckingham Palace with their owners this morning. The event was organised by Rescue Dogs of London and Friends to raise funds for Hungry Heart Dogs Rescue and Zem Rescue, which rehomes dogs from overseas. Prizes for the best dressed pets were awarded in Green Park next to the palace. Well, those have been your latest GB News headlines. I'm Lewis Mackenzie. There's more from me in half an hour's time.
Thank you, Lewis. It's just coming up to 7 minutes after 4 o'clock. If you just tuned in, welcome. I'm Nana Akua. We're live on TV, online and on digital radio. Louise Haigh, what a disaster. In my view, another shambolic politician and an utter hypocrite. Turns out that Louise has a colourful past, and I don't mean her hair. I'm talking about a criminal record after being found guilty of fraud by misrepresentation. You couldn't make it up. Whilst her conviction is now spent and people argue it was the lowest level crime, doesn't sound great, does it? Especially when you're pontificating about Boris Johnson.
completely at a loss to understand how he can possibly pretend that he hasn't. His pathetic non-apology in the House of Commons today was a total slap in the face to the British public, and the only question he should now answer is when he will resign.
Louise was apparently mugged and her mobile phone snatched. Only later she found it after being given another one, and she didn't bring it to the attention of her employers, Aviva. She pled guilty to fraud with misrepresentation, something she says she regrets. Thing is, Sky News reported that two people who knew her at the time claimed that she just wanted an upgrade on her phone. This, Louise claimed, was ridiculous. She also claimed that Sir Keir Starmer knew all about it and gave her the job anyway, but it transpired that he didn't know the extent. He's hot on this, apparently.
The value symbolised by the door of number 10 must be restored. The game is up. You cannot be a lawmaker and a lawbreaker. Only then can the government function again. Only then can the rot be carved out. Only then can we restore the dignity of that great office and the democracy that it represents.
Yeah, which begs the question as to why he gave her the job in the first place. People say that she's achieved a lot in her 4 months, as though her achievements have been good. So let's take a look at these achievements in these last few months. This is the woman on the eve of a summit with P&O bosses who were set to attend the summit worth billions to this country. As Transport Minister, Louise said this about the company. The bosses were so annoyed they threatened not to attend the business summit.
No, I've been boycotting P&O ferries for 2.5 years, and I'd encourage consumers to do the same.
Bad judgment or what? She's credited with ending the strikes for rail workers. Yes, I think we could all do that if we caved into the union demands without any conditions in place. One of the first things she agreed to was an inflation-busting pay rise for the rail workers, keeping all the dodgy working practices. There were no concessions whatsoever. Anyone can do that, but I guess it's not her money. I frankly saw it as pretty irresponsible. A bit like when the banks were bailed out, when they remember that disaster and Gordon Brown sold all our gold. I mean, if you're going to stand on the plinth of integrity, castigating others, you will fall on your sword. People are saying that Keir is being ruthless, but I'm not buying this. I'm sorry, Louise, but something smells fishy. This isn't over. So before we get stuck into the debate, here's what else is coming up today. For the Great British Debate this hour, I'm asking, do you trust Sir Keir Starmer's judgment? The Prime Minister's political judgment is facing fresh scrutiny after he forced Transport Secretary Louise Haigh to resign over a historical criminal conviction, something her allies claimed that he had known about for 4 years. As MPs back the assisted dying bill, we'll be discussing the ins and outs of this legislation. The former president of the Royal College of Physicians of Glasgow will be discussing. Then, in our Great British Debate, I'm also asking, should migrants be forced to integrate? A leading German politician says this country will force migrants to assimilate to its established liberal dominant culture. So should the UK follow suit? And as the bloody war in Ukraine grinds on, President Zelensky hints that he would accept a ceasefire with Russia in exchange for NATO membership. All of that coming up. As ever, send me your thoughts, post your comments, gbnews.com/your say. So joining me now, human rights campaigner Peter Tatchell. Peter Tatchell, thank you very much for joining me. Yeah, okay, come on, this Louise Haigh, she had a criminal conviction. Seems as though there's something not quite right about all of it. She should go, surely.
Well, Keir Starmer is absolutely right that those who make the law should not break the law. What Louise did was, many years before she became an MP, there is some confusion about this particular case. It appears that a number of mobile phones, or more than one mobile phone, may have been stolen in that mugging that she suffered. And it appears that she forgot that one of them was not stolen, and it was later discovered in a drawer. Now, you know, people do make mistakes, and she did plead guilty. She did pay the price. She was convicted. So I'm just asking myself, you know, she's paid the price. She's fessed up. Does this really require her resignation? because as she has said in that interview you ran, Boris Johnson and Rishi Sunak both broke the law over Partygate during COVID. Both were convicted, but they stayed on as Prime Minister. So I think there has to be uniform standards across politics for all political parties. And I'm in favour of generally a bit of forgiveness here and there.
I don't think so. Well, it was a bit of cake in the case of Boris Johnson, so I'm afraid if we are talking about what this is an actual act of not complying with some sort of law where, well, if you're saying that something is stolen and then suddenly it re-emerges, you should tell your employer. So I presume that Aviva, the insurance company she was working for, probably alerted the police when the phone was switched back on again, and she pleaded guilty for it. I don't think you can actually make any real comparisons with that and Boris Johnson. But the point we were making is that she pontificated on high about how disgraceful their behaviour was. So I just at a loss to understand why she even thought that she should be going for high office in the first place. And there's more to this than meets the eye, as other people are saying that actually she wanted an upgrade on her phone. So was she even actually mugged?
Well, there are lots of ifs and buts, and we don't know. That's true. But I do think both Louise Hay and Keir Starmer need to be more transparent and give a full account of this story, because it's coming out in dribs and drabs, and that is not satisfactory. The public have a right to know the truth.
Well, I'm glad you said that, Peter Tatchell, because I actually agree with you on that. It's not really acceptable for our politicians who are leading us. Do you agree with Keir Starmer in terms of you cannot be a lawmaker and a lawbreaker, even if the conviction is spent?
Well, I think in a case of a spent conviction predating a person being a member of Parliament, I think there is room for forgiveness there to move on. If a person's paid a price, now I would say this about a Conservative MP or any other MP, if they had a conviction in the past, they pleaded guilty, they paid the price, it was before they became a member of Parliament, I think that's fair enough. I wouldn't hold that against them. But what I do say is both Louise and the Prime Minister need to be much more clear about what actually happened and who said what and when. When did Keir Starmer know? What did he know? We don't know that he was told the full story. And that may be a perfectly reasonable thing for him to excuse himself on, because if he wasn't told, he can't really be punished or damned.
Well, I mean, look, he's somebody who was the head of the Crown Prosecution Service. I'm sure he could have gone to find out more information if he really wanted to. So I'm not even believing his account either, but, that's down to other people. Now, I want to also, whilst I've got you here, I want to get your views on the assisted dying bill that went through yesterday. Are you in favour of it?
I am, because I've seen suffering from loved ones, long, prolonged suffering, agonizing suffering. And also, I'd like to make the point that assisted dying already happens in this country, and it's official. It's on the NHS. My cousin was dying, and clinicians and doctors withdrew support without getting permission from me as next of kin or from her two sisters who were rushing from Australia to be at her bedside. And they took away the food and water, and she died literally, because of that decision, she died literally 2 hours before her sisters arrived to be at her bedside.
Well, so what does that tell you?
That was done by the NHS. And it's not the only case. I've heard of other people in similar situations where medical staff have withdrawn life support and effectively killed the person.
Well, so what does that tell you? I mean,
they've assisted the death.
Was that acceptable in your view?
No, it wasn't. No.
Well, that's assisted dying for you.
Yeah, well, in assisted dying under this legislation, it's very clear the person has to be terminally ill with less than 6 months to live.
But
they have to be of sound mind and capacity. That has to be confirmed independently by 2 different doctors and then okayed by a High Court judge. So there are very rigorous safeguards.
They're very unrealistic, rigorous safeguards.
There won't be a slippery slope, because the slippery slope can't happen because the legislation is so tightly drawn, it wouldn't allow for anything other than those conditions.
All right, well, you think that, but I think it will be more expansive. Peter Tatchell, thank you very much Really good to talk to you. And also just to remind you, Louise Haig's conviction is spent, which is what I said in the monologue, and we said repeatedly, and no longer appears on her record, although I think people still see these spent convictions and still make judgments based on them. Let's return to one of the biggest stories, of course, of today. As Peter was talking, MPs have backed the assisted dying bill, and to give his thoughts on the legislation, I'm joined now by former President of the Royal College of Physicians and Surgeons of Glasgow, David Galloway. David, what are your views on assisted dying?
Yeah, good afternoon, Nana. Thank you for the opportunity of responding to this. First of all, I'm profoundly disappointed that the MPs have taken the stance that they have. And if I might just comment on something that Peter Tatchell has just said, it just illustrates how profoundly people are confused about the nature of this proposed legislation. He was indicating that withdrawal of treatment amounted to assisted dying. That's absolutely incorrect. What we're talking about here is essentially physicians and surgeons being offered an opportunity to actually end the life of patients, and to do it with the patient's consent, of course, and assisted dying, as it's framed in this legislation, allows an individual to actually take the lethal medication themselves. This is not at all to be conflated with or to be mixed up with what has just been described in Peter Tatchell's family's experience. Clearly, I mean, that situation is a situation that provokes profound compassion. But I think that the reality of this is, and when it's been looked at before, the devil is always in the detail, you know? And when people have really got into examining the practical implications of what this would look like in practice, that's when doubts begin to appear. And interestingly, when I listened to the debate yesterday, and I listened to most of it, there were loads of anecdotes, of course, and these stories are very compelling, but there was little substantive that was new and objective compared to the kind of rehearsed arguments that we've seen and displayed before, and have been universally so far voted down. So my response to this has been profound disappointment so far.
Well, I think a lot of people feel that way, and also just not enough time to scrutinise, and I don't think it's the time scales are realistic. We haven't got anything in place to do the things that the bill could do anyway. Listen, thank you so much. Really good to talk to you. That is David Galloway. He is the president or former president of the Royal College of Physicians and Surgeons of Glasgow. Well, if you just tuned in, welcome. This is GB News. I'm Nana Akua. It's fast approaching 20 minutes after 4 o'clock. We're live on TV, online and on digital radio. Still to come, the Great British Debate this hour. And I'm asking, do you trust Sir Keir Starmer's judgment?
I'm Stephen Dixon, and thanks for joining us on GB News, Britain's news channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is the nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
Millions are struggling to stay warm with the wet weather, the cost of living and, of course, cuts to fuel payments.
Yes, winter is fast approaching, so it's crucial to find cost-effective ways to save on your energy expenses whilst staying reasonably warm.
So joining us to provide advice on heating your home, or at least staying warm somehow, is one of the leading voices on lowering energy bills, Nick Miles. And you are very welcome in here this morning. I mean, a lot of people would say, well, in the olden days, you just used to put on an extra jumper. But actually, it's more serious than that, isn't it? What is the best way, the most cost-effective way to keep your home warm?
Some of the bigger things is we need to do more things on insulating our properties, but actually sometimes, it can be simple things like turning down a thermostat. Those that have got the luxury of being able to afford energy bills and keep their homes on the thermostat a bit too high. If you just turn it down by one simple degree, as long as you keep it between 18 and 22 degrees, can save up to 5 to 10% of your energy bill. So that's a kind of a very simple way of doing things. But, it can be other little tips and tricks you can do as well.
Yeah, I was going to say, because I always get it when people say about this, but like 18 degrees is not warm for a house.
No, and it's twofold actually. It's that kind of relative temperature, but also it's the kind of drafts and things you have in your house. So it's the comfort factor. So what we have a lot of old properties in our country. You've got some 8 million hard-to-treat properties built before World War II that have got poor insulation, but also very, very drafty. So it's the temperature and it's the kind of the draftiness of them that kind of keeps us uncomfortable.
GB News, the People's Channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
I'm Emily Carver. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
"23 minutes after 4 o'clock. This is GB News. Don't forget to watch us live on YouTube or check out all the monologues. You can check out my niggle on Louise Haigh. It should be up and running in a matter of moments. But it's time now for the Great British Debate this hour. I'm asking, do you trust Sir Keir Starmer's judgment? Fresh questions have been raised about the Prime Minister's forced Transport Secretary Louise Haigh to resign. I mean, that is the assumption we are making. We think behind all of this was Morgan McSweeney over a criminal conviction that her aides claimed that he had known about for 4 years. Number 10 insists that the new information had emerged about Mrs Haig's past when the Prime Minister called her on on Thursday to say that he had lost confidence in her. But allies claim that she made a full disclosure to Sir Keir Starmer when he first asked her to join his top team back in 2020 while in opposition. So for the Great British Debate this hour, I'm asking, do you actually trust Sir Keir Starmer's judgment? Well, joining me to discuss, political commentator Andy Williams, and also broadcaster and columnist Lizzie Cundy. Let's start with Lizzie Cundy. She did a smoochy look to the camera just there. Lizzie.
Do I trust Keir Starmer?
Yeah, judgment.
No, I don't.
What a surprise.
I don't at
Shock.
all. He's got no idea, no judgment, and I have no faith or confidence in the man. I've got more confidence in backing a rocking horse winning the next derby. I really do. A wooden one. Look, it's one thing after another with him, and he was the one that was, preaching about being holier than thou. And since he's come into government, there's been nothing but lie after lie, and he thinks he can do that without any scrutiny.
Well, which other lies? Because we've got Louise Haigh. He didn't actually specifically lie. If anybody lied, it may well have been her, although, according to her, she had told him everything and said, no, there were no lies.
Well, no, he's lied to the electorate. I mean, he lied to the pensioners, he lied to the farmers, he's lied on many things.
Well, no, he didn't. Hold on. He didn't specifically say that he wasn't going to do these things, he just didn't say it.
Exactly. Well, to me, that's a lie.
It's not a lie.
Oh, come off it. But he went to the Farmers' Union and he said that he wasn't going to do this. He's absolutely ruined their livelihoods. No, and I have to say, now, can I just finish here? Because I don't believe he didn't know about this with Louise. Surely, when you're getting your cabinet together, you vet them. I do that on a date with a boyfriend. He's not done anything to that. He really hasn't. Is he that poor, not doing his homework on someone he's going to have in his government? I don't believe him.
Andy Williams.
If he's lied to, or if he's not told the full truth by somebody who has disclosed something but has only disclosed the partial truth, I don't really know how much more you can do. Same on your dates, Lizzie. If someone lies to you, you're not going to go through their bins and, find out everything about them.
What if that person...
I don't know
maybe you will.
Well, what if that person was head of the Department of Prosecutions many moons ago, but he could have used his connections or he could have easily found out more?
No,
well, he could have done.
No, I think.
What if they were, which he was?
I think I don't think him being head of the CBS has anything to do with this. In a professional setting, you have to trust senior colleagues. If you ask them something, that they're telling you the truth. And if it later emerges that they're not, they have to pay with their job, which is exactly what happened. So I really do not think this is an example of poor judgment on Keir Starmer's part. I think he has...
This is government. You don't just go, I'd go on your word. You double-check. Surely you vet...
How?
You vet...
How? No, seriously, tell me...
in government, you have to vet.
Tell me practically how he was supposed to find this out.
There are ways and means you vet.
How?
Well, OK, I'll tell you. He was head of the CPS, so in those things that he did...
But he's not anymore, Nana.
Hang on, let me finish. No, let me finish. And I said was, so you're just repeating something I've already stated. He was head of the CPS. He could have easily done way more digging. He has all these aides around him. He could have used those people to vet the people going in his cabinet. That's what any sensible person would do.
I'm trying to understand practically how they would have uncovered this new information. How?
Because he can find out the information that literally within a few moments, the Times, Sky News, they've all found more than he did in a matter of moments as soon as they discovered about her conviction, which they probably decided to look into, found out about it, and within not even half a day, they had found 2 people who were prepared to say... let me finish. They found 2 people who were prepared to say that all she wanted was a mobile phone upgrade. So I don't believe any of it.
This is just it's a nonsense. They've had journalists working on this for months, obviously. There are you're a journalist. You know that there are people full-time working to try and uncover things about all sorts of politicians that people don't know.
He's a legal brain, isn't he? Isn't he supposed to be the forensic legal brain? He would know to vet. He would know how to do it. He would know how to dig. We're not fools, and that's what he thinks we are.
It's not.
And you know what? What he does, he sees a carpet and he just lifts it up, puts it all under. I'm sick of it. Honestly, his policies are about as clear as a 1950s smog.
It's not the Prime Minister's full-time job to be trying to find out every last thing about every member of his cabinet. You don't know every last thing about everyone you work with. I know that the government has to be...
And I was Prime Minister, I tell you, I would.
I don't think you would, because how would you possibly...
She just told you that she would, so what you think she would, she's just told you what she thinks.
And I'm saying what I think.
No.
I'm not just going to... Sorry, Nana, I don't just accept what people think.
Well, you've just said that you've just told her what she thinks and she's told you what she actually thinks.
I think something else.
These are 2 different things. So what I'm saying is, if we accept what you think, you accept what she thinks, you'd have to agree with it. But those are her thoughts, not the thoughts that you project.
But you don't accept what I think, because you've just told me you don't.
You just... No. What I'm saying is the projected thoughts that you said she thinks, she's told you she doesn't think that. But your projected thoughts are wrong.
No, we're agreeing to disagree.
No.
I don't know, this is just a rabbit hole we don't need to go down.
We've all got to agree with that there's a petition that has been going about, not for very long, and it's got nearly now 3 million that are saying...
now, let's talk about this petition.
That have a lack of confidence in our Prime Minister. That is, and that's happened very quickly. You know what? They've only been in government 4 months.
This petition is an absolute nonsense. And
Why?
Why? I'll explain why. Keir Starmer was absolutely right when I think he was on This Morning earlier this week talking about this, and he said, well, there were tens of millions of people who didn't vote for Labour. So the fact that 3 million people have signed a petition saying we don't like the outcome of the result, which, by the way, many Brexiteers who banged on about Remainers trying to overturn the outcome of the referendum will have signed. I'm afraid that's how general elections work. Of course, 3 million people. There'll be 30 million people who don't like the Labour government. So the fact there's a petition, it's not hard to sign a petition.
No, I think that's a slightly disingenuous comparison, because the difference with this one and the difference with Brexit is that we were told specifically what he was going to do, and he didn't do the things that he specifically said. Brexit, we didn't know what would be happening.
Well, we were told.
No. I mean, I voted Brexit, and I know that I knew it was an open door to something that we'd never done before.
Yeah.
So it's not like I'm saying, oh, I'm going to do this and that and this and that. Well, exactly that. I knew that the outcomes of Brexit were totally unquantifiable, whereas Keir Starmer has said what he wants to do in his manifesto, and people have voted for those specific things, and he's not done them.
The architects of Brexit quantified all sorts of things about what Brexit would mean, including immigration go down, and it's gone through the roof, including £350 a week more for the NHS.
That's because of stupidity in policy which was actually perpetrated by the Tory party.
It's because of the specific Brexit deal that was signed.
No,
but if Brexit,
no, it's not.
Yes, it is.
It's not. It's because of legal migration, which we have control of, and the Tories did not do the job they were meant to do.
And maybe Keir Starmer should read the room. Look at the 3 million that have actually signed. Don't just dismiss it, put his head in the sand like an ostrich.
What are we supposed to do, have another election?
All he does is dismiss everything. He has to read the room, look at himself, apologise. He has lied. He's like, look at this party. There's one thing after another. Rachel from Accounts, let's go there, about her CV.
Well, as I said earlier, I think lots of people inflate what's on their CVs. I don't think it's true.
So
it's true.
To be in government, to be actually
It doesn't matter.
One of the most powerful
Let's judge Rachel Reeves on the job she's doing. Let's talk about...
No. When you get caught out writing things that aren't necessarily true on your CV, like saying you are an economist at a certain bank, it turns out you're in retail banking, these are very different disciplines, then that's not true, is it? No. And so if you've put something down like that in your CV and your employer, which is us, the general public here who voted for these people, find out, then you are answerable to us, surely.
No, it's a clever argument. I don't agree with it.
It's true.
No, I don't agree with it.
What, so you don't think that the politicians are answerable to us if they lie or expand the truth on what they actually did when they were working and claim that this is a skill they're bringing to the table?
I think we should judge Rachel Reeves on how she performs as Chancellor. Now, I've been critical.
God help us.
I've been critical of certain decisions she's made, and let's see where we go.
OK, well, let's see where we go. It looks like we're heading towards a massive, gargantuan black hole that they have created, bigger than the one that they claimed was there, and it seems to be expanding by the moment. Andy Williams, Lizzie Cundy, thank you. Right, you're with me. This is Britain's, I was about to say Britain's newsroom. We're not. It's GB News. We're live on TV, online and on digital radio. I do that on Fridays at 9:30 till 12 o'clock. I'm Nana Akua. We're live. Coming up, my great British debate this hour. I'm asking, should migrants be forced to integrate? But first, let's get your latest news headlines with Lewis Mackenzie.
Thank you very much, Nana. Good afternoon. It's just after 4:30. Here are your top stories from the GB newsroom. Assisted dying could become legal in England and Wales after the bill was backed by MPs in a historic vote.
The ayes to the right, 330. The noes to the left, 275. The ayes have it, and look!
Kim Leadbeater's bill received 330 ayes compared to 275 noes at its second reading in the House of Commons. That's a majority of 55, with the Prime Minister, Sir Keir Starmer, among those who voted in favour of the bill. It would allow adults with just 6 months left to live to request medical assistance to end their lives. President Zelensky has suggested that parts of Ukraine under his control should be taken under the NATO umbrella to try and stop the hot phase of the war. During an interview, the Ukrainian president was asked whether he would accept NATO membership, but only on the territory that Kyiv currently holds. He said he would, but only if NATO membership was offered to the whole of Ukraine within its internationally recognised borders. However, so far, President Putin has given no indication that he's abandoned his desire to subjugate Ukraine entirely. A memorial service has been held today for former First Minister of Scotland, Alex Salmond. His wife of more than 40 years and supporters arranged a remembrance service for him today on St Andrew's Day. Mr Salmond died last month in North Macedonia at the age of 69. He was at a conference when he suffered a heart attack. Salmond was buried privately in a family cemetery near his home in Aberdeenshire at the end of October. Well, those have been your latest GB News headlines for now. I'm Lewis Mackenzie. There's more from me in half an hour's time.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Hello, here's your latest weather update from the Met Office for GB News. Over the next few days, we'll see some rain at times, often quite blustery, and things will turn colder, albeit for a time, during the early part of the coming week. Low pressure's anchored towards the northwest of the UK at the moment, fairly tightly packed isobars, indicating those fairly blustery winds, and this weather front starting to move in from the far west there across Ireland and Northern Ireland. And we'll see outbreaks of rain here during the evening, some of that rain quite heavy, working from west to east. Towards the southeast, we hold on to mostly fine weather overnight, quite a bit of cloud around, but elsewhere it will go downhill. Outbreaks of rain moving in from the south and west, and again, some of that rain turning quite heavy, particularly across parts of England, Wales and Scotland into the early hours. By the end of the night, some clear weather towards the far northwest, and wherever you are, it's a mild and frost-free night. As for Sunday, well, unfortunately, it's an unsettled day to come. Bands of rain moving from west to east across all parts of the UK. Certainly to start the day on Sunday, some showery outbreaks of rain across the mainland of Scotland there. One or two brighter breaks in between, and quite a mild start to the day as well. For Northern Ireland, not faring too badly. Isolated showers, but some clear or sunny weather developing here during the early part of Sunday. And some clear to sunny weather across parts of Wales and the southwest, again with one or two showers around to start the day on Sunday. Further east and southeast, though, some more persistent bands of rain moving from west to east. And on the whole, it's a pretty unsettled day to come across the UK. Further bands of rain will work in from west to east across all areas through the day, coupled with quite blustery winds, particularly towards the north at first. Here we'll see gales for a time. In between those rain bands, there will be some sunshine, and that will help to lift temperatures into the low to mid-teens Celsius. Quite a mild afternoon to come. Temperatures up in the north up 12 Celsius, down towards the south there 14, even 15 degrees. 15 is 59 in Fahrenheit. Further bands of showery rain to come in from the west during the evening, and notice the wind starting to turn into a northerly direction from the north later in the day. That's a sign of things to come during the early part of next week. A colder spell developing, some sunshine, yes, but some frost, even a bit of snow towards the north, before things start to turn milder again from the west by the middle of the week.
Go to gbnews.com/shop now and take advantage of our biggest ever Black Friday sale with 25% off all items across our store and free shipping on orders worth £60 or more. There's never been a better time to grab something for the GB News fan in your life. From our signature clothing to drinkware, gifts, accessories and much, much more, you'll find the perfect present this festive season. Use the code BLACKFRIDAY25 on checkout at gbnews.com/shop for our best ever Black Friday deals.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Mark Dolan, and this is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, 38 minutes after 4 o'clock. This is GB News. We are Britain's news channel, live on TV, online and on digital radio. I'm Nana Akua, and it's time now for the Great British Debate this hour. I'm asking, should migrants be forced to integrate? A senior figure in Germany's Christian Democrats Union, or CDU party, said that migrants will be compelled to assimilate and accept what he calls Germany's dominant culture if his party forms the country's next government in February. Immigration is said to be one of the election's dominant issues after 9.3 million people moved to Germany in 2023. Given that 1.2 million people moved to Britain in the same year, questions will undoubtedly be asked as to whether the similar approach should be taken here. So for the Great British Debate this hour, I'm asking, should migrants be forced to integrate? Well, joining me to discuss, political commentator Andy Williams and also broadcaster and columnist Lizzie Cundy. I'm going to start with you. It is the Lidkultur, which is popularised by a guy called Friedrich Merz, which is what the CDU, or the Democratic Party in Germany, are calling it. What are your views on that? Are they right?
Look, I think the starting point has to be that there have to be some basic values. I think the idea is that there is a cultural basis that sort of everyone in a country subscribes to, and I do think that's a really important thing. You know, if you are moving to any country, you have to. There are some basic tenets of what it is to be British or German or American or whatever their nationality
what if you're maybe
is.
Muslim and you want to wear the burqa? That's not part of their political culture.
Well, that is a really interesting and tricky one. I have to tell you, I honestly don't know what I think about that. I think that's challenging. But I do think there are some basic cultural tenets that you have to subscribe to. But what I don't think we should have, and I'm not saying this is what's being suggested, but I don't think it would be right to impose a homogenous culture on people, because I think there are
I think that is the point of this, that a homogenous culture, irrespective of where you've come from or what your principles are, this is the baseline.
So I think it's Exactly. I think there's a baseline, and I think that's right. And we could all, we could agree or disagree about what that baseline should be. I think it's right there's a baseline. What I don't think it should be is saying if you come to a country, you have to absolutely wholesale subscribe to an entire set of principles or views. Some of these, because that is a slippery slope.
Well, we'll listen to this then. So it's the respect for equal rights of women, the rule of democracy, and Germany's post-war constitution also considered as part of this. In addition, Israel's right to exist following the October 7th massacre. So they're not tolerating any of...
Well, I agree with all of those.
I agree with all of that, Nana. I totally do. And I think, people need to respect our values and everything we stand for, and I'll never forget when I was going through trying to get to the show actually, and it had the marches on with the and people jumping on all our statues and our, you know, and I was thinking, hold on a minute, what's going on here in our country? It isn't right. So disrespectful.
But Lizzie, lots of the people on those marches are not migrants. In fact, I would imagine that the vast majority of them were probably people who were born here.
Well, they might have been.
We've got the biggest population growth in 5 decades. I mean, it's 69 million now, our population. I mean, like in 1975, it was 56 million. I mean, it's huge. And those migrants, I just think it's so important that they respect our values, what we believe, our cultures, for us to all get on. Because if you lose our identity.
Because if you go to some of the countries where their culture is very dominant, so some of the Muslim countries and so on and so forth, when they come here, which is fine, whatever, you know, then we don't ask for any real assimilation. But if we go to one of those countries, we must assimilate to their culture and their behaviours and their being, which I think is fine. I have no problem with that. But I'd like to see that echoed the same way round, whatever our cultural barriers are. So if we required people to wear a hijab in this country, if we did, then I would expect people to follow those principles, the principles that they would expect in their country.
Well, I think each country will set its own baseline, right? So I think there should be a strong baseline. I agree. There are certain values. Equal rights for women is a really important one, which is why the hijab question is interesting, because, you know, are you really respecting women by forcing them to wear a hijab? Well, that's a question. So I think there should be a baseline. But what I don't think you should do is say, if you come to a country, and again, this is not what they're saying in Germany, as I understand it, but I don't think you should say you have to throw your culture out and completely adopt a brand new one. I don't think that's the right balance. So I think it's finding the balance.
It's about respect.
It is about respect.
Our values and our culture, and it's really important. And you know, when I go away, I was in Greece and going to a Greek Orthodox church, and they said to cover up your shoulders, cover up, you know, and you abide by what they want.
And it's also it's like when you go to somebody's house and they say take your shoes off. You don't wear shoes in the house. You don't then go, no, but I wear shoes in my house, so I'm going to wear shoes in your house.
Exactly.
You just say get out.
It's an important aspect of of making sure that a society functions properly. And a society can only function properly if everybody is playing by a roughly similar set of rules. And I do think that's important.
Yeah. All right, so Germany are onto something.
I think they are.
So what do you think? gbnews.com/also. I'm going to read some of those out as well. Stay tuned. Loads more still to come. It's just gone 44 minutes after 4 o'clock. You're with me. I'm Nana Akua. This is GB News. We're live on TV, online and on digital radio. And as the bloody war in Ukraine grinds on, President Zelensky hints that he would accept a ceasefire with Russia in exchange for NATO membership. Stay tuned. We will discuss.
I'm Ellie Costello, and thank you so much for joining us here on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
It's a time for the vegan community to get together, as well as an opportunity for non-vegans to try going plant-based.
Well, joining us now is from her delicious hummus, and we both love hummus, this is a great thing. This is the founder of Chickpea, Hannah McCollum. Hannah, lovely to meet you. And you've brought in some of your beautiful products in front of you here, so can you talk us through some of them?
Yeah, absolutely. So I have a range of chilled hummus, and then latest to the range of a new ambient snack pot, which is a fridgeless hummus that doesn't require refrigeration. But I started Chickpea because of my love for hummus, but also sustainability and reducing food waste and encouraging people to be more plant-based without saying go vegan.
Does normal, say, traditional hummus have anything that's not vegan appropriate in it?
Not really.
No,
I think
it's always just chickpeas, olive oil, maybe some other bits.
Yeah, lemon juice, aquafaba or water to help with consistency, garlic, and rapeseed oil or olive oil.
And there's a bit of a misconception about veganism that I hear a lot, where people say, "Look, I'm not a vegan. I love my steaks. I'll just get out of there now." But But there's a misconception that you don't get the protein, you don't get the fats, and you're kind of just eating processed salads and, fake meat and things. But that's not quite the case, especially with chickpeas, right?
Yeah, I think protein is really important, and actually a lot of people think I need a certain amount of fish every week or meat, but actually a lot of the fish and meat that you're eating are eating higher protein foods, so algae, seaweed, pulses, all these types of plant-based foods. For me, veganism is like you could have a delicious rye seeded bread with just loads of roasted vegetables, seeds, tahini sauce on top.
That sounds
and there's nothing beige in there at all.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Nightmare commute? Kick it up a gear with GB News Radio. You can listen online and on DAB+ and on the GB News app. We're also on TuneIn and the Radio Player apps. From the school run to rush hour, get revved up with GB News Radio. We are the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Tom Harwood. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Well, good afternoon. Welcome. 47 minutes after 4 o'clock. Have you just tuned in? Where have you been? No, welcome. You're with me. I'm Nana Akua. This is GB News. We are Britain's news channel. Of course we are. Now, lots of you have been getting in touch with your views on a lot of the things we've been discussing. We were talking about immigration and the new thing in Germany. If this party get in, they would put in place a sort of baseline level of things that they want people to assimilate to when they come. Sarah said, if people are fleeing their country because of cultural issues, surely it's not great to bring them here, those issues. Yes, I agree. If you are, then why would you want the similar things there? This one from Grumpy Grandad, he says, if I go to another nation, I respect their values and cultures. I don't expect them to change a single thing to suit me. I go to these countries because I like them as they are. So why do people come to our nation and expect us to change everything to keep them happy? Yes, that's a perfectly decent point. Alistair said, I say as a country, we should tell all immigrants, legal or illegal, it's my way or the highway. It's a bit sharp, but I kind of see where you're coming from. And lots of people getting in touch. Grumpy also said Nana is against assisted dying for religious reasons, I suspect that. But we have to do more to help people in their final days. I've heard some horrific stories on here. They're really upsetting and everyone is talking those last few days. That's what we should be concentrating on. Yeah, not for religious reasons, actually, Grumpy Grandad, just because I don't really like the idea of the state being in charge of something like that. I think it's a conflict of interest. But anyway, keep them coming. Right now, though, of course, Ukrainian President Zelensky has suggested that a ceasefire deal could be struck with Russia if Ukrainian territory still under his control is taken under the NATO umbrella. So to dissect this story, joining me in the studio, defence editor at the Evening Standard, Robert Fox. Robert, so can you give us a bit more detail on this? What exactly is Zelensky suggesting?
Well, he said it to Sky, and it was picked up by the BBC. And as you rightly say, there were an awful lot of ifs and buts. If there could be a guarantee from NATO, he would be prepared to give up a certain amount of land that had already been lost to Russia, provided in the future it could still be under a NATO umbrella. Those are terms that Putin absolutely would not take a smell at. So what's the point of this story? I think there is a big point because there are an awful lot of moving parts behind this story. It is part of a Zelensky move to open up, to get them talking, because he knows that's what the Trump presidency is going to want. And he, like Trump, he's a great performer. He reads the room, and probably reads the room better than Putin, and they both do. And so he is preparing for that. He's preparing for some truly bloody, awful fighting over the next few weeks, because it is extremely bloody and extremely tight for both sides. But Russia thinks it's got the advantage.
Because we know that, of course, it's going to be very cold in Ukraine. Very, very cold, and the Russians have already attacked infrastructure quite heavily over the last few days or so.
Yes, the 11th major attack on infrastructure, particularly power, this year, the second in a month, and things are pretty desperate. Soldiers are being eaten up by this war at a terrible rate, up to 2,000 a day on the Russians. Not very good either for the Ukrainians, because they're finding it difficult to recruit. But What is going on? Absolutely unscheduled. The defense minister of Russia is in North Korea, chumming up to Kim Jong-un, and Kim Jong-un is saying, we are back, you absolutely all the way in your fight for Ukraine. What is Belousov asking for? I think they're desperate about manpower. They're asking for more North Korean soldiers, in addition to the 10 or 11,000 that they've got already. A lot more ammunition. 50% of medium and heavy artillery ammunition used on the main front is from North Korea. And what is Kim Jong-un asking for in return? The real worry is that he's going to reignite the North-South Korea war there. One more thing, and it's underreported. The ruble has collapsed. It's been frozen. It's been one of the successes that the very bright central banker, Elvira Nabiullina, has managed to keep things afloat. But it stopped trading, for, I think, only possibly for 24 hours on Friday. And the economy is in desperate, desperate trouble. Business is in trouble, interest at 21%. So it's a game, it's the tortoise and the hare.
Well, what about all the money they've been making from the oil?
Well, how much money have they been making from oil? Because you tell me they have managed to get some out even to the West because they sell it through dark ships, they sell it through India, who's been a not very honest broker in all this. But they've made a deal, again, what is the deal with North Korea? Because that's not a sparkling economy, of up to 1 million tons of crude over the next year or so. It doesn't look, because it's at such discount, that they're making that much money. And the other thing that we have to kick into this, before we just finish, is there's something desperate, there's something pretty wild about what Putin has been saying, even by his wildest standards. I could expand the war, we're going to go into different areas, you watch out in Georgia. Sorry, one more setback, Aleppo. His big pal, Syria's leader, Assad, is in dead trouble. Hezbollah has abandoned him, and for the first time in 8 years, they've had to use the Russian Air Force on the rebels. The rebels have got most of Aleppo by now. So things are not looking good all the way around. And Iran seems to be thinking again about its alliance with Russia.
God, there's a lot going on, isn't there?
That's what I say. You know, I think of a lot of moving parts.
There's a lot of them. Listen, thank you very much. That's Robert Fox.
Yeah.
He is the defence editor at the Evening Standard. Fascinating stuff. Well, if you just tuned in, welcome. This is GB News. We're live on TV, online and on digital radio. Coming up, we'll continue discussing the passing of the assisted dying bill with Dr. René Honderkamp, who has some reservations about it. Stay tuned. All of that on the way. As ever, send me your thoughts, post your comments, gbnews.com/your say. Do not forget to download the GB News app. It is completely free. Or why not stream the show live on YouTube? But before that, let's get an update of your weather with Marco.
Heavy showers first thing will be followed by a warm, cosy day. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello, here's your latest weather update from the Met Office for GB News. Over the next few days, we'll see some rain at times, often quite blustery, and things will turn colder, albeit for a time, during the early part of the coming week. Low pressure's anchored towards the northwest of the UK at the moment, fairly tightly packed isobars, indicating those fairly blustery winds, and this weather front starting to move in from the far west there across Ireland and Northern Ireland. And we'll see outbreaks of rain here during the evening, some of that rain quite heavy, working from west to east. Towards the southeast, we hold on to mostly fine weather overnight, quite a bit of cloud around, but elsewhere it will go downhill. Outbreaks of rain moving in from the south and west, and again, some of that rain turning quite heavy, particularly across parts of England, Wales and Scotland into the early hours. By the end of the night, some clear weather towards the far northwest. And wherever you are, it's a mild and frost-free night. As for Sunday, well, unfortunately, it's an unsettled day to come. Bands of rain moving from west to east across all parts of the UK. Certainly to start the day on Sunday, some showery outbreaks of rain across the mainland of Scotland there. One or two brighter breaks in between, and quite a mild start to the day as well. For Northern Ireland, not faring too badly. Isolated showers, but some clear or sunny weather developing here during the early part of Sunday. And some clear to sunny weather across parts of Wales and the southwest, again with one or two showers around to start the day on Sunday. Further east and southeast, though, some more persistent bands of rain moving from west to east. And on the whole, it's a pretty unsettled day to come across the UK. Further bands of rain will work in from west to east across all areas through the day, coupled with quite blustery winds, particularly towards the north at first. Here we'll see gales for a time. In between those rain bands, there will be some sunshine, and that will help to lift temperatures into the low to mid-teens Celsius. Quite a mild afternoon to come. Temperatures up in the north up 12 Celsius, down towards the south there 14, even 15 degrees. 15 is 59 in Fahrenheit. Further bands of showery rain coming from the west during the evening, and notice the wind starting to turn into a northerly direction from the north later in the day. That's a sign of things to come during the early part of next week. A colder spell developing, some sunshine, yes, but some frost, even a bit of snow towards the north before things start to turn milder again from the west by the middle of the week.
A nice bright morning will generate a lovely warm day, right through to the evening. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
It's the biggest, greatest Great British giveaway so far, with your chance to win a spectacular £50,000 in tax-free cash. 2025 could be amazing, with plenty of treats, holidays and fun on the horizon. How would you enjoy that cash? £50,000 will make someone our biggest ever winner. For your chance to win, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. You can call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge, or post your name and number to GB10 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 31st of January. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Go to gbnews.com/shop now and take advantage of our biggest ever Black Friday sale with 25% off all items across our store and free shipping on orders worth £60 or more. There's never been a better time to grab something for the GB News fan in your life. From our signature clothing to drinkware, gifts, accessories and much, much more, you'll find the perfect present this festive season. Use the code BLACKFRIDAY25 on checkout at gbnews.com/shop for our best ever Black Friday deals.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the argument. We get rid of the disrespect. And then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together and what have we got, in my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mark Dolan tonight is your weekend dose of news, debate and entertainment.
This sounds like a wild conspiracy theory.
Don't miss my big opinion. Mark Meets and my take at 10.
Democracy is a funny old thing.
And we don't do boring, not on my watch. I just won't have it.
Let's go and get another glass of that bubbly. You've earned it.
That's Mark Dolan tonight, Saturday and Sunday, 9 to 11, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome to State of the Nation, daily plunge into the stories shaping our country. I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, and Monday to Thursday we bring you the insights, the facts, the truth about how our country is being governed. Because what happens in Downing Street matters down your street. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello, good afternoon and welcome to GB News. We're live on TV, online and on digital radio. I'm Nana Akua. And for the next few hours, me and my panel will be taking on some of the big topics hitting the headlines right now. This show is all about opinion. It's mine, it's theirs, and of course it's yours. We'll be debating, discussing, and at times we will disagree, but no one will be cancelled. So joining me for the final hour, political commentator Andy Williams and also broadcaster and columnist Lizzie Cundy. So, in my niggle today, I took on Louise Haigh. You can catch it online if you missed it. There's more to this than meets the eye. If nothing's changed, why should she have resigned? Apparently, according to her, she told Keir Starmer everything back in 2020, but recollections vary. So do you trust Keir Starmer's judgment? I've got a poll up on X asking just that.
The game is up. You cannot be a lawmaker and a lawbreaker.
So if that's the case, why did he give her the job in the first place? Coming up, as MPs back the assisted dying bill, we'll be discussing the ins and outs of the legislation with Dr. Rennie Honderkamp. Then, in difficult conversations as World AIDS Day approaches, joining me, a gay rights activist, Philip Baldwin. He was just 24 when he was diagnosed with HIV. But before we get started, let's get your latest news with Lewis Mackenzie.
Thank you very much, Nana. Good afternoon. It's 1 minute past 5 here in the GB newsroom, and here are your latest headlines. Assisted dying could become legal in England and Wales after the bill was backed by MPs in a historic vote.
The ayes to the right, 330. The noes to the left, 275. The ayes have it, and look!
Kim Leadbeater's bill received 330 ayes compared to 275 noes at its second reading in the House of Commons. That's a majority of 55, with Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer among those who voted in favour of the bill. It would allow adults with just 6 months left to live to request medical assistance to end their lives. President Zelensky has suggested the parts of Ukraine under his control should be taken under the NATO umbrella to try and stop the hot phase of the war. During an interview, the Ukrainian president was asked whether he would accept NATO membership, but only on the territory that Kyiv currently holds. He said he would, but only if NATO membership was offered to the whole of Ukraine within its internationally recognised borders first. However, so far, President Putin has given no indication that he's abandoned his desire to subjugate Ukraine entirely. Further accusations have been made against the TV presenter Greg Wallace in the wake of him stepping away from hosting MasterChef while a review into complaints are carried out. Penny Lancaster is prepared to speak with authorities regarding her experience with Mr. Wallace on Celebrity MasterChef following his recent departure. Production company Banijay UK says it's launching an external review with Wallace fully cooperating during the investigation. His lawyers insist the claims are entirely false. A memorial service has been held today for former First Minister of Scotland, Alex Salmond. His wife of more than 40 years and supporters arranged a remembrance service for him on St Andrew's Day. Mr Salmond died last month in North Macedonia at the age of 69. He was at a conference when he suffered a heart attack and was buried in a private family cemetery near his home in Aberdeenshire at the end of October. A plane which experienced a serious incident in October last year is said to have left nearly 200 people on board at risk of developing hypoxia, a potentially fatal condition. The aircraft had been en route to Kos in Greece after departing Manchester Airport, where an oversight from both pilots left 2 crucial engine systems not being turned on, resulting in the loss of pressure within the cabin. A report from the Air Accidents Investigation Branch says the loss of pressure could be significant enough to affect cognitive performance. 3 days later, the same aircraft veered off the runway at Leeds Bradford Airport. GB News has contacted TUI for comment. And finally, more than 100 dogs dressed in Christmas jumpers joined a festival parade in central London in support of rescue charities. An estimated 130 pets made their way down St James's Park, down the Mall, towards Buckingham Palace with their owners this morning. The event was organised by Rescue Dogs of London and Friends to raise funds for Hungry Hearts for Dogs and Zem Rescues, which rehome dogs from overseas. Prizes for the best dressed pets were awarded in Green Park next to the palace. How sweet. Those are your latest GB News headlines for now. I'm Lewis Mackenzie. More from me in half an hour's time.
Thank you, Lewis. It's just coming up to 5 minutes after 5 o'clock. This is GB News. We're live on TV, online and on digital radio. I'm Nana Akua. Coming up, as MPs back the assisted dying bill, I'll be joined by Dr. Rennie Honderkamp to dissect the legislation in detail. We'll be also crossing live to St Andrews as we celebrate Scotland's national holiday. Then, for the Great British Debate this hour, I'm asking, do you drink at your Christmas party? I never do. 1 glass of champagne, no more. Legal experts warning that beefed-up sexual harassment rules could spell the death of the traditional Christmas party. And in difficult conversations as World AIDS Day approaches, I'll be joined by British gay human rights activist Philip Baldwin. He was just 24 when he was diagnosed with HIV. And as the UK marks Sir Winston Churchill's 150th birthday, we'll be debating whether the wartime Prime Minister is the greatest Briton of all time. That's coming up. As ever, send me your thoughts, post your comments, gbnews.com/yoursay. So the assisted dying bill is one step closer to becoming legal in England and Wales after MPs backed it in an historic vote. The vote followed 4.5 hours of debate with 330 MPs voting in favour and 275 opposing, just a 55 majority. The Prime Minister, Sir Keir Starmer, was one of the key people voting in favour, alongside the Chancellor, Rachel Whiz. Can we check that there? Because I'm not sure that was the case. The legislation would mean terminally ill adults with 6 months left to live are able to request assistance in ending their lives. To discuss this, I'm joined by GP and medical writer Dr. Renee Honderkamp. Renee, thank you very much for joining me. Now, you wrote a piece in the Daily Mail the other day. A lot of people may not have read it. What did you say in that piece, and what are your views on this?
So I thought that yesterday was one of the darkest days in our history. I really did, because I foresee now people, elderly people, vulnerable people, disabled people, being coerced to die who don't want to die. And as a society, we should say no to that. We should protect those people.
But the bill says that you have to have 6 months left to live, so trying to sort of get rid of that coercion, isn't that right?
Okay. Well, there's two elements to that. Firstly, it's almost impossible to predict how long somebody has to live. It really is. You can predict when somebody's got a few days to live, maybe a few weeks, but to actually say you've got 6 months, it's impossible. And I've seen plenty of patients be given 6 months and live for 3 years. And so, you know, that's a nonsense. None of us have a crystal ball. And then what do we do? If that person lives for 6 months, do they have to reapply, or does it just stand for whenever they want to do it? You know, that's a vagary. The other thing is that it will slip. We already had some MPs yesterday, and I watched the entire debate. I'm that sad. We had MPs standing up asking that if in the debate period in committee we could actually extend that time period, because some diseases like Huntington's, which is an awful disease, you know, take longer, motor neuron disease, for people to die. So there will be slippage. Once we have it on the statute books, mark my words, it will gradually slip to include other things, longer time periods, other people.
But what to the argument that people are suffering? Someone's deeply suffering. Yeah. If they were an animal, you would have put them down. So why force humans to live?
OK, firstly, because we're not animals, we're humans, number one.
But the argument is about compassion, is what they would say.
Absolutely. And, you know, I've seen people dying. Obviously, it's my day job. And no one wants anyone to suffer. Unfortunately, life is not guaranteed against suffering of all sorts as we go. Everybody will suffer. We can't guarantee it. But what we can do, Nana, is put some money into good palliative care. We do not have good palliative care. We have shocking palliative care. And if we had the best palliative care in the world with the best funding, where hospices weren't forced to raise money at local fairs because they're charities, we could actually not only assuage most of that pain, not all of it, most of that pain, and let people have a great life. And I've seen plenty of people come into A&E at 4 a.m. in the morning who want to die with their family at home, but they're in agony and they're desperate. And once good palliation has taken place and they're sitting in their chair and they don't have that pain to that degree anymore, they want to go home and be with their family. So we need that. And there is an answer for dying with assistance in UK law. In palliation, we are allowed, eventually, if people are suffering too much, to induce what we call deep sleep sedation, where people are rendered unconscious, their pain is over, and they might stay that way for a few days, a few weeks, whilst they die. That's assisted dying. What this bill is assisted suicide.
They're very, very, very different, totally understood. And the problem I'm really having with it is that I'm concerned about the checks and balances and also the Crown Prosecution Service, which they're saying, oh, well, you know, 6 months. if you try and take anything to the Crown Prosecution Service, it takes more than 6 months.
Well, I was just going to say, it's going to take 2 years for any of this to get in front of a High Court judge anyway. And what High Court judge has got the time, or actually the expertise, to override 2 doctors? That's number one. So it's going to be a rubber stamp when it actually gets there. I doubt people will get their order within 6 months of their life. So they'll either die, sadly, or they'll live on, which means they weren't going to die in 6 months anyway. And do we trust these people? Let's not forget in COVID, Nana, we sent infected elderly people home from hospital into care homes to infect everybody else. And this government knew they were doing that. Do we trust them?
Yeah, I mean, they did know that. That was their thing, sending people back there. I don't think they meant anything horrible by that, but I can't really understand why you would do that. It does seem utter madness. So would there be any way that this bill would be acceptable to you as a doctor?
Do you know, I'm not hard on this because I don't understand what it's like for people. And I've always said that if I got knocked over by a bus tomorrow and I was paralysed, I would probably want the choice to take my own life. I've always said that. I'm touching wood that doesn't happen, but if it does, that's probably what I would want. However, if I have to make that decision in the knowledge that having that choice means somebody vulnerable who doesn't want to die will die, then I can't do it. I can't sleep at night. So for me, I can't see a way around it.
In your view, are most doctors supporting this?
Yes. So in that article I did in the Mail, they wanted to do that as a head-to-head, and they couldn't get a doctor to argue for the bill.
Oh, right. So the doctors aren't supporting the bill anymore.
And many of them will opt out. I'm going to opt out. I won't take part in this. I didn't become a doctor to kill people.
But if they're asking to be, killed simply because they cannot bear the suffering any further, then surely,
Good palliative care. Something's wrong with their palliative care if that's happening. So that's what we have to focus on, and that's where we have to put the money. But also, you raise a really interesting point. If you're my patient and we know each other, Nana, and you ask me to do that and I say no, what happens to our relationship? What happens to that doctor-patient relationship?
Well, I'm not going to be your friend anymore.
Yeah.
And do you trust that 2 doctors signing it off? People say, 2 doctors are signing it off. And I'm thinking, listen, I could get my doctor to sign me off for depression and this and that, things that they potentially couldn't quantify. It's not that difficult.
It's not that difficult. Or they will shop around, and the bill clearly states that they can shop around until they find a doctor who will. I also envisage there will be private doctors who will make a living out of this. Unfortunately, not all people are good.
Well, Renee, you're back. Tell us a bit about when you're back and what will you be talking about?
So I'm back at 6 o'clock. I'm going to be talking about migrants and Hotel Britain that Kemi talked about. Darren's going to be talking about how we're treating our soldiers and dragging them through the courts. We've got some fun stuff on the, obviously, Bunch of Five. And I'm going to be arguing about these sick influencers. Have you seen them?
Oh, no.
They're teaching people how to gain the sickness benefit.
Oh, for goodness sake. Dr. Renee Hunterkamp, look forward to seeing you at 6 o'clock for the Saturday 5. You will not want to miss that. Stay tuned. But moving on, today, the 30th of November, is actually St Andrew's Day, the annual celebration of the patron saint of Scotland, Ocaidanu. And what better place to celebrate that than in St Andrews? Let's go live now to speak to GB News reporter Tony Maguire. Hello, Tony. Talk to me about St Andrew's Day. Great day.
Hello, good evening. Yes, we are celebrating St Andrew's Day in style. This is the big hoolie, the big party that St Andrews enjoys year after year to celebrate the day of their patron saint. St Andrew's Day is just so you know, we didn't even start celebrating it. It was actually over in America where communities in New York and Charleston, well, the Caledonians who were a little homesick, they started celebrating it there. And of course, over here in Scotland, we thought, well, we better get our act together, and then we did. But as you can hear behind me, we're now in the musical portion of this celebration in St Andrews. We've got a cracking selection of local bands. Right now, I believe Nuclear Fusion is up on the stage, that famous Scottish instrument, the ukulele. But nevertheless, it's been a really great day here of just people enjoying themselves. November is a really hard month for everybody. And of course today marks the end of that, and tomorrow is December. And what happens in December? Christmas. So this has been a huge community event. You know, not every community in Scotland celebrates St Andrew's Day, but of course here in St Andrews it's the ceilidh, and then we're going to see the torchlight procession, and then the end of the day we're going to have that rather spectacular fireworks show which happens every year. And really today is just all about community. I think after, you know, lots of people here and everywhere have a bit of a rough year, and to see the community, you can see just how many. This has only actually started about 10 minutes ago, and yet here we are. So many people have come out. There's already hundreds in the street behind me listening to the music that's out on stage. But certainly for St Andrew's Day, for a lot of people, St Andrew, he was the patron saint of Scotland since the signing of the Declaration of Arbroath. He's been part of Scotland's culture for so long. Today is his day, and to all my Scots listening all around the country, Slán Javar.
Lovely, thank you very much, Tony. That's Tony McGuire. He's there in Scotland. It's St Andrew's Day today. Welcome aboard if you just joined me. 16 minutes after 5 o'clock. Coming up, my difficult conversations. It's World AIDS Day tomorrow. I'll be joined by studio by an activist, Philip Baldwin. He was just 24 when he was diagnosed with HIV. You will not want to miss his story.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and he did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Sunday with Michael Portillo from 11, only on GB News.
Fabio, thank you for coming in. It's great to see you. Nice to meet you. So you were born near Rome?
Yeah, in a very small town. It's called Serrone, about an hour south of Rome, on the hillside.
Was it a place of excellent cuisine?
It is, indeed. A place of excellent cuisine and red wines. In fact, it's the only DOCG red wine of the region,
Most of your career, I mean, this may seem self-evident, you've cooked Italian. I'm thinking that's quite a challenge to cook Italian in Malaysia, to cook Italian in Bermuda or Turkey. Was that a challenge?
It was, but I like challenges, so that's one of the reasons why I started to travel, because of my job. For example, in Malaysia, I've been sent there to twist a grill restaurant into an Italian restaurant inside a five-star hotel. And I was doing the chef training for the local chefs. And then I build the menus, I train the chefs, and then I eventually go back.
In Italian food, is there lots of innovation?
I would say in the past 10 years, yes. It used to be a very traditional cuisine, but in the past 10, 15 years, Italian chefs, they are a bit more open-minded, I would say.
Give us some examples of your innovation.
Well, hide and seek is very well around the innovation. In that bar is a bar and kitchen where we have a cherry plate concept, where we try to take our guests in a culinary journey, starting from a classic dish and then reinventing into a modern twist. Usually I like to twist the style of cuisine between different countries, different continents.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Why go out on a Friday night when Friday night comes straight to your home?
Talking about?
Join me and my A-team of top pundits. Chemistry tonight is electric. As we tackle the big stories of the day with wit, insight and fearless energy.
Man of the people.
It's all vibe.
Just a filing cabinet on wheels with a tie on.
So, order in Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, every Friday at 8, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
That's sort of odd. I was in and out there. You saw me. 20 minutes after 5 o'clock. Welcome if you just joined me. This is GB News. We are Britain's news channel. I'm Nana Akua. We're live on TV, online and on digital radio. And it's now time for this week's Difficult Conversations. And ahead of World AIDS Day, I'm joined by gay rights activist Philip Baldwin. Philip was just 24 when he was diagnosed with HIV and has now dedicated himself to campaigning about LGBT rights. Philip, I'm pleased to say, joins me in the studio. Philip, thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a privilege to be here.
Thank you so much. So, Philip, talk to me about your journey, because you were only very young when you found out that you were HIV positive. Talk to people about that. How long have you been living with the disease? Because the medications have changed somewhat since your diagnosis, I should imagine.
It's really interesting that you ask that. I was diagnosed with HIV in January 2010 when I was 24 years old. So we're approaching 15 years now since my HIV diagnosis, and it's going to be quite a landmark in January when it is actually 15 years. And over that period, the treatments have changed a lot. I've gone from taking 3 pills a day to taking 1 pill a day. And I actually have the option to take my HIV treatment as an injection, although I still prefer to take it daily as a pill.
And also now, of course, we've got medications which HIV can be undetectable, which that wasn't the case then before either, was it?
So the PROUD study in 2018, it showed that if people are on effective treatment, that their viral load is so suppressed that it's described as undetectable. So we call this U equals U. Undetectable equals untransmittable. Right. And for me, it's something incredibly empowering.
Yeah. Because, of course, when you were 24, take me back to when you were 24 and you discovered that you had HIV. You know, do you know who gave it to you? Obviously, you're not going to say that on air, but do you know who gave it to you? And what were you feeling at that time?
I'd been tested for all STIs in April 2009, and I actually tested negative for HIV. I discovered that I was living with HIV over my lunch break from work, and it just came as a complete shock. It was devastating. It took me several years to come to terms with my HIV diagnosis, but the key to coming to actually accepting my diagnosis was learning about HIV. Once I knew that I could live a normal life by taking my medication regularly, that then enabled me to continue with my career in the city as a lawyer, for example, and ultimately to become the activist that I am today.
Yeah, it's incredible, isn't it? What do you... I mean, this is completely off the cuff, this particular one. The assisted dying bill's just passed. And I'm wondering what your views are on it, because I should imagine at the time when you were told that you were HIV positive, or even if we go even further back when it was first discovered as a disease, people may well have wanted to take their lives because of it, because they knew they may have been told they're not going to live long or so on and so forth. But with time, we've had technologies and medications that have allowed people to live a normal life. What are your thoughts on this assisted dying bill? Do you think that it might stop development of certain treatments that might help to cure certain illnesses if those illnesses initially come with almost a death sentence?
It's actually really interesting that you ask me that question, because as well as campaigning around HIV, I'm actually also on the Church of England's General Synod. So it took me a long time to reflect on assisted dying, and I listened very carefully to what Esther Ranson had to say. and then also what Dame Tammy Gray Thompson had to say about it. I spoke to a theologian within the Church of England, and I think we have a God of compassion. And I think if someone, rather than assisted dying, I think assisted suicide
is what it should be called. Do you think they should rename it?
I think with the safeguards, the safeguards are really important. And I think with the appropriate safeguards, I am in support of assisted dying.
Do you think the safeguards are in place, though? Because they're pushing this through, two doctors and whatever the other thing is, but it doesn't, you know, and obviously it's got to go through a judge. But in your experience, do you think they'd even get to see a judge within 6 months?
Well, do you know, you raise a really interesting point. My preference would have been, rather than for assisted dying to have been introduced as a private member's bill, I would rather that it had been that we had had maybe several years leading up to it.
A proper bill that has a lot more time and scrutiny. That is really a valid criticism, and one that I made yesterday, and many have made it, and I think it's pretty unfair because the MPs were each given a couple of minutes if they want to say something. So it was only really debated for a maximum of 5 hours yesterday for something that is so groundbreaking and changing, and also for something that doesn't have the foundations already put in place for it to be successful if it were to be implemented right now. If you're going to debate something and allow it to be passed so quickly, you need to make sure the checks and balances and all the things that support it, the foundations are there. In my view, they're simply not.
Another point that you made regarding HIV once being perceived as a death sentence. At the same time as my HIV diagnosis, I was also diagnosed with hepatitis C. Now, so that was in 2010. But around 2014, 2015, they actually developed cures for hepatitis C. So I've now I completely cleared my hepatitis C in 2017.
Yeah.
So that's another facet that I think we do need to think about, that medical advances
might slow down those medical advances for diseases that we think are terminal.
It could be the case that one day we have a cure. It's a very, very challenging issue. It's an issue where I am in support of assisted dying, but I do actually think there should have been more scrutiny.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people would probably echo that. So it's World AIDS Day tomorrow. Talk to me about what you've been doing and how you hope to sort of, what kind of message you want to spread to people.
Well, so World AIDS Day, as someone living with HIV, in lots of ways, it ends up being the culmination of a lot of the campaigning that I do all year round. The key things that I want to highlight for World AIDS Day is that we currently have 107,000 people living with HIV in the UK, that 5,000 of those people are living with HIV and are undiagnosed. Over the past 2 years, we've actually seen an uptick in new HIV diagnoses, but this is partly because we're seeing more heterosexual people testing because of the introduction of opt-out testing within A&D departments. So I would encourage as many people as possible to test, because the UK is a country which can achieve the UN goal of having no new HIV transmissions by 2030, and that would be something really incredible.
I think a lot of that is also driven by some of the migration as well, because some people coming here are bringing the disease as well. I do remember reading something about that. If people want to find out more, are there any helplines or places people can go to find out more if they're worried about HIV?
I would suggest checking out the Terence Higgins Trust website or the website of Positively UK.
All right, well, Philip, thank you very much. That's Philip Golden. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me on the show. You are really, really kind, and thank you for platforming people living with HIV.
Oh, such a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bless his heart. It's just gone 30 minutes after 5 o'clock. This is GB News. We're live on TV, online and on digital radio. I'm Nana Akua. Still to come, the Great British Debate this hour. And I'm asking, do you drink at your work Christmas party? First, let's get your latest news with Lewis Mackenzie.
Thank you very much, Nana. Good afternoon. It's just after 5:30. Here are your top stories from the GB newsroom. Assisted dying could become legal in England and Wales after the bill was backed by MPs in a historic vote.
The ayes to the right, 330. The noes to the left, 275. The ayes have it, and look!
Kim Leadbeater's bill received 330 ayes compared to 275 noes in its second reading in the House of Commons. That's a majority of 55, with the Prime Minister, Sir Keir Starmer, among those who voted in favour of the bill. It would allow adults with just 6 months left to live to request medical assistance to end their lives. President Zelensky has suggested that parts of Ukraine under his control should be taken under the NATO umbrella to try and stop the hot phase of the war. During an interview, the Ukrainian president was asked whether he would accept NATO membership, but only on the territory that Kyiv currently holds. He said he would, but only if NATO membership was offered to the whole of Ukraine within its internationally recognised borders. However, so far, President Putin has given no indication that he's abandoned his desire to subjugate Ukraine entirely. A memorial service has been held today for former First Minister of Scotland, Alex Salmond. His wife of more than 40 years and supporters arranged a remembrance service for him on St Andrew's Day. Mr Salmond died last month in North Macedonia at the age of 69. He was at a conference when he suffered a heart attack. Salmond was buried at a private family ceremony near his home in Aberdeenshire at the end of October. And finally, more than 100 dogs dressed in Christmas jumpers joined a festival parade in central London in support of rescue charities. An estimated 130 pets made their way from St James's Park down the Mall towards Buckingham Palace with their owners this morning. The event was organised by Rescue Dogs of London and Friends to raise funds for Hungry Hearts Dog Rescue and Zem Rescues, which rehome dogs from overseas. Well, those have been your latest GB News headlines for now. Joe Casper will be with you in half an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Hello, here's your latest weather update from the Met Office for GB News. Over the next few days, we'll see some rain at times, often quite blustery, and things will turn colder, albeit for a time, during the early part of the coming week. Low pressure's anchored towards the northwest of the UK at the moment, fairly tightly packed isobars, indicating those fairly blustery winds, and this weather front starting to move in from the far west there across Ireland and Northern Ireland. And we'll see outbreaks of rain here during the evening, some of that rain quite heavy, working from west to east. Towards the southeast, we hold on to mostly fine weather overnight, quite a bit of cloud around, but elsewhere it will go downhill. Outbreaks of rain moving in from the south and west, and again, some of that rain turning quite heavy, particularly across parts of England, Wales and Scotland into the early hours. By the end of the night, some clear weather towards the far northwest, and wherever you are, it's a mild and frost-free night. As for Sunday, well, unfortunately, it's an unsettled day to come. Bands of rain moving from west to east across all parts of the UK. Certainly to start the day on Sunday, some showery outbreaks of rain across the mainland of Scotland there. 1 or 2 brighter breaks in between and quite a mild start to the day as well. For Northern Ireland, not faring too badly. Isolated showers, but some clear or sunny weather developing here during the early part of Sunday. And some clear to sunny weather across parts of Wales and the southwest, again with 1 or 2 showers around to start the day on Sunday. Further east and southeast, though, some more persistent bands of rain moving from west to east. And on the whole, it's a pretty unsettled day to come across the UK. Further bands of rain will work in from west to east across all areas through the day, coupled with quite blustery winds, particularly towards the north at first. Here we'll see gales for a time. In between those rain bands, there will be some sunshine, and that will help to lift temperatures into the low to mid-teens Celsius. Quite a mild afternoon to come. Temperatures up in the north up 12 Celsius, down towards the south there 14, even 15 degrees. 15 is 59 in Fahrenheit. Further bands of showery rain coming from the west during the evening, and notice the wind starting to turn into a northerly direction from the north later in the day. That's a sign of things to come during the early part of next week. A colder spell developing, some sunshine, yes, but some frost, even a bit of snow towards the north before things start to turn milder again from the west by the middle of the week.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is the nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, 37 minutes after 5 o'clock. If you've just tuned in, where have you been? Sorry, 21 minutes to go. I'm Nana Akua. This is GB News. We are Britain's news channel. We're live on TV, online and on digital radio. And it's time now for the Great British Debate this hour. And I'm asking, do you drink at your work Christmas party? According to legal experts, beefed-up rules on sexual harassment could lead to the death of the traditional office Christmas party. So for the Great British Debate this hour, I'm asking, do you drink at your work Christmas party? Well, joining me now to discuss, political commentator Andy Williams, also broadcaster and columnist Lizzie Cundy. I'm going to have to come to the queen of the party herself, Lizzie Cundy. Office Christmas parties, do you drink at them?
Yes, I do. I don't want to surprise everyone, but of course I do. It's time to celebrate, time to relax with your colleagues and have a bit of a giggle. You know, of course I have a drink. I think it's, you know, I do enjoy a drink, and I think it relaxes people, and it does. But you drink with responsibility. You know, don't act really silly in front of your bosses.
Well, that's the whole point, isn't it? That people sort of tend to lose their inhibitions and then behave like idiots.
We've just got to be grown-ups about it, haven't you? I think I'm completely agree with Lizzie. I think why not? You know, lovely to have a few drinks, whether it's Christmas or otherwise. To be honest with you, it's a Saturday night. Might have one when I go home, but but no. I mean, in all seriousness, if you're somebody who know that you get really agitated and aggravated when you're drunk, then maybe you need to be a bit careful. If you're someone who gets a bit amorous when you're drunk, then be careful.
Yeah.
Just be grown-ups about it, and you know, I'm afraid we need to have a zero tolerance approach to the sort of behaviour that would be unacceptable regardless of whether you've been drinking or not. But I don't think that means we should ban booze from Christmas parties.
No, I didn't say ban booze, but I go to the Christmas party, I will have one glass of champagne.
Oh.
I don't drink anything else after that. And sometimes I might actually drive to the party where it is so that I don't drink at all. And if I do that, that's so that I don't drink at all.
And is that a Christmas parties thing or a general?
No, and that's not because I'm a crazy drunk and I'm anything. Well, because I quite like having my faculties about me. I can have a good time without needing to drink. And also, Well, there was one Christmas party which I don't remember much, and others told me, and I thought to myself, I'll never do that again, ever.
No, I think you've got to know your limits.
Yeah,
You're very
exactly.
disciplined, Nana. You know when to stop. I think I know when to stop. I know when I'm getting a bit giddy. But I remember I was at Nigel Farage's party. All the bosses were there, and we were doing Rock the Boat.
Well, that wasn't a Christmas party. That was just a party.
Legs akimbo.
Totally different.
No.
Christmas party, you've got your entire office there.
Yes.
See.
Yes, but I still think that is a time to actually relax. I think you can make friends. They can see another side to you. That you might be more relaxed.
Side.
No, not the drunken side. But you're more relaxed, and you know, having an odd drink or two is not a bad thing.
Not a bad thing.
Yeah, I think there's also something about your kind of position of responsibility. You know, if you're a very senior person in any organisation, on the one hand, as you say, Lizzie, lovely for people to see a different side of you, be a bit light-hearted, but you also have added responsibility if you're that sort of senior role model type person. You just have to be that extra bit careful.
All right, well, listen, lots of people have been getting in touch with all the things we've been discussing, and of course the big topic has been the assisted dying bill. Michelle, and she's sort of tongue-in-cheek, said Dr. Shipman would have been knighted for his contribution to assisted dying under this law. My head hurts, she said. I don't trust the state, especially Keir Starmer and co, and I agree with Renee. She talks sense, so that was obviously tongue-in-cheek at the beginning, but the point that Michelle is making is that, of course, states will be in charge, and she doesn't trust this at all. James says assisted dying, sadly, for those with just 6 months to live. 2 GPs are needed. That will take 9 months. Good point. I mean, can you get a doctor's appointment?
Oh, well, no. And I've been trying to get a doctor's appointment. We can't do it. And, you know, it really... I just don't think this actually makes sense in some ways. It really needs to be looked at properly and thoroughly.
James goes on to say a judge needs to sign it off. The decaying and dysfunctional courts, judge, judiciary and civil servants will fast-track the case, so it'll only take 20 months. By the date of hearing, you'll already be dead for 2 years. Well, that's the point, isn't it? I mean, they're talking about this legislation as though they've got the assisted dying, and it's laughable how we haven't got the resource to do it anyway. Michael says assisted dying is a very delicate subject. Personally, I would like to choose a time to go if I was in agony. Maybe in the near future we'll just have to wish it and off we go. Hans says a woman I know was dying of cancer and in terrible pain. She had palliative care provided at home, but eventually she took a decision and stopped eating completely. Her death was one of pain and lack of dignity. Richard says Labour is no better than the Tories, with not even a half-baked proper long debate on their kill bill, which is what he's terming it. They will have to rush every bill through, as they only have 5 years to finish the UK off.
Not a Labour bill, though.
Well, it may have been started under the Conservative Party, but, you know, I would say that the actual debating of it, which is where, you know, it then becomes... It goes through the process of being passed as a bill. As you and Lizzie both agree, it wasn't enough time, really.
No, I don't think there was enough time.
No. Okay.
And you could see everyone wanting their time to talk about it. It means so much, you know, and everyone was desperate to talk, and the stories were so heartbreaking as well, and it just seemed rushed.
Well, Neil says, my mum has just passed away. The palliative care was second to none. My mum was moved from hospital to care home, where she passed away within 10 hours. The palliative care team kept in touch with me with updates on my mum's health. They were wonderful. See, that's the other thing.
Yeah.
Will drug companies want to invest in diseases that, you know, have short potential? So, for example, HIV many years ago, that would have been a death sentence. Would the drug companies have looked to try and find a solution, or would they just allow people to just pass away? That's the other side of it. That why would you invest in something that you could just think, you know, move on to something that is treatable, that you can continue to supply people with, if you see what I mean?
Yeah, it's tricky.
Yeah, it is very tricky.
David says, I've been in nursing for 40 years. I've seen many people die. I'm totally with the doctor on assisted dying. With good palliative care and the use of induced deep sleep, most people just drift away. I mean, was this even necessary? I don't know. Daniel says, and on a more cheery note, because it is, of course, St Andrew's Day, Daniel says, I'm all for the Scots to celebrate St Andrew's Day, for the Welsh to celebrate St David's Day, and for the Irish to celebrate St Patrick's Day. But when I get upset about it is when we want to celebrate St George's Day, then English are made to feel that they shouldn't be doing it.
That's not true, is it?
You don't think that's true?
No, I don't think so at all. I think there's nothing to stop anybody celebrating St George's Day.
No, I agree with you. Look, we should celebrate it. Of course we should. Fly the flag.
I agree with Daniel that you're sort of made to feel guilty, especially even holding a Union Jack or St George's Cross. It's like I said to my daughter, "I'm going to get you an umbrella," and I said, "I can get you one with a Union Jack on it." She went, "Don't get me that, Mum. I'll be bullied."
Well, that's it.
That's what she said.
Even my neighbour, when the England team were playing, had the flag, and another neighbour told her to take it down.
Well, that's ridiculous. I think, actually, particularly during football tournaments, England flags are everywhere and everyone's fine with it.
We're not allowed to fly our own flag.
Well, there you go. You've changed your tune. Right. Well, coming up, my quick-fire quiz where I test the panel on some of the other stories that caught their eye this week. Stay tuned.
Go to gbnews.com/shop now and take advantage of our biggest ever Black Friday sale with 25% off all items across our store and free shipping on orders worth £60 or more. There's never been a better time to grab something for the GB News fan in your life. From our signature clothing to drinkware, gifts, accessories and much, much more, you'll find the perfect present this festive season. Use the code BLACKFRIDAY25 on checkout at gbnews.com/shop for our best ever Black Friday deals.
GB News Breakfast. Every day from 6 a.m.
What do you think?
Morning. I think we have failed young drivers as a society, and we need to train them better and train them earlier. I think that the idea of stopping them carrying passengers for 6 months is a good idea because you've got peer pressure within a car. So yes, but I think graduated licenses are really difficult. You've got what we call the 3 E's, which is education, educating kids to drive earlier, and engineering, which is making roads better and safer, and then comes enforcement at the end of it. So I think we're failing in these two first ones, the education and the enforcement. I put my kids, all 3 of them, through a thing called Young Driver, which allows under 17s to drive on private land with ADI instructors and learn the craft of driving and all the below the dashboard stuff and hazard awareness long before they try and do this very compressed period of time to learn about driving. I think we're failing them. So I want to see it in schools, and I want to see them being taught much, much earlier.
Nobody's actually pointing the finger of blame, I think, at the young driver, but maybe young drivers don't understand how different it is. You feel you can drive, you've passed your test, and then a load of your friends get in the back, and suddenly the mood is different, the pressure on you as a driver is very different, showing off, just larking around and having a great time. Aisha, how do you feel about the fact that clearly young drivers do need to be protected almost from themselves, don't they?
Well, I do agree with some of what Quentin has just said, especially about starting early and especially about getting young people used to the dangers of being on the road.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Welcome to State of the Nation, daily plunge into the stories shaping our country. I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, and Monday to Thursday we bring you the insights, the facts, the truth about how our country is being governed. Because what happens in Downing Street matters down your street. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome. If you just tuned in, it's almost the end of the show. What are you doing this now? Come tune in next time, 3 o'clock. But listen, Saturday 5 are up next at 6. You will enjoy that. But it's time now for the quickfire quiz, the part of the show where I test my panel on some of the other stories hitting the headlines right now. I'm Nana Akua, and joining me, political commentator Andy Williams. I think I might have had a drink already. And broadcaster and columnist Lizzie Cundy. Right, Andy, your buzzer, please. Lizzie Cundy, your buzzer, please. And please play along at home. Right, question 1. Which former Prime Minister is celebrating his 150th... I've started, so I'll finish. You should not buzz until I've finished.
Oh, sorry, I wasn't aware of the rules.
So you've now been excluded from the answer.
Oh,
celebrating
didn't know the rules.
150th birthday today. I'll let you back in. Lizzie Cundy.
Winston Churchill.
Oh, very good, yes. 1-0. Interestingly, Winston Churchill, we asked you at home, is Churchill the greatest Briton? 94% of you said yes.
Yes.
Yes, that's fine. Well done.
I agree.
You'd please hear there. If you want to check out all our big polls, then go to gbnews.com/poll. Question 2. Earlier this week, a man received compensation after buying a smooth Mars bar. But how much did he receive? Was it A, £200, B, 20, or C, 2? Lizzie Cundy.
I'm going to say A, 200.
200.
I was going to say C, 2.
C, 2. Let's see. The answer is 2. It is C, 2.
I was hopeful.
I'm going to give you that, even though you didn't buzz in first, but you did get the correct answer.
I'll tell you why, because I had a Snicker bar once. They were called Snickers.
Look at that.
Without nuts.
£2.
Look at it. That's it. A smooth one. He was so angry.
Yeah.
He complained.
Oh, I would have loved that.
I would have taken the picture and got my £2 as well. Right, question 3. True or false? The BBC licence fee will increase by £15 next year. Andy Williams.
True.
Is it true?
I think so.
Lizzie Cundy.
It's false. I'm going to do different.
Is it? OK.
It's false.
It's false. Let's see, maybe the amount is wrong. It is false.
That was a trick.
Nice.
It was a trick. I do them sometimes. Yeah, the answer is actually false. It will only increase by just £5.
£5 too much?
I mean, obviously, I pay my BBC TV licence. I have to, otherwise I'll go to prison. What are your thoughts on it?
I think it's a disgrace that it's increasing. It is... I actually am thinking of abandoning the licence fee. I
think
honestly
it's...
am. And
Well,
there's more trouble at Mill with their presenters at the minute. It's one thing after another there.
I think it's great value for money. You get the news, you get all the culture, you get BBC 1, 2, 3, 4, all the radio stations.
They're supposed to be impartial, they're not.
OK. Well, for a throwaway point, how much will the fee be to the nearest pound? Andy Williams.
155.
Lizzie Cundy.
I'd say 150. Sorry,
OK,
150.
so, we know that's not good, is it? Because it's 174 it will rise to.
There you go. Well,
So, yeah.
sorry, we're both...
19 quid out.
Throw it away.
Sorry,
Yeah,
I don't look at my bill.
Right, question 4. Who has replaced Louise Haigh as transport?
Come on.
No, where's...
Lizzie Cundy.
Heidi Alexander.
Yeah.
Correct? You looked as though you were impressed.
No.
Lizzie is a font of knowledge.
I am indeed.
Heidi
Not surprised.
Alexander. For throwaway point, and you probably throw this one away. Heidi Alexander, what did she do beforehand? Yes.
She was Deputy Mayor of Transport to City Com.
Very
could you let me out?
good. No throwing away.
I am in a rush now.
Lose her mobile phone.
Yes, that was a question. Really, to be honest with you. I mean, you know, back in the day, you lost a mobile phone. Right, question 5. Closest answer wins. How much, in euros, did the rebuilding of Notre Dame Cathedral in Paris cost?
Oh, I saw this on the news last night.
I don't know.
800 million.
Have you pressed your buzzer? Because I'm... Go on, then.
800 million.
I'll take your first answer, which was the same. Lizzie Cundy.
I'm going to say...
yes.
I'll say 900.
£900 or no?
Million. I really don't know. I really don't know.
The answer is 700 million euros. So you were absolutely right. I'm going to tot up the scores. I'll ask the producer, tot up the scores, please. I
think we're level.
I think, actually, because I threw away, we had a throwaway point, the scores on those 3 all. So well done, very good. Good job, good done.
Fair fight, Lizzie, a fair fight.
Fair fight. And hopefully you were playing along at home and you got the right answer as well. Right, well, I tell you what, though. Today, I've been asking, do you trust Sir Keir Starmer's judgment? What do you think the Twitter poll says?
I think it's going to be high. I think it's going to be in the 90s. I haven't looked. I think it's going to be in the 90s because I think this country really doesn't trust this man and had enough.
I think so too, but I don't agree.
What did you think the answer is?
The poll, 96-4.
Well, let's have a look. Let's have a look. Well, according to the Twitter poll, 3.1% of you said yes.
Even worse.
96.9% of you said yes. Did you say yes or no? Hang on. So, do you trust the Keir Starmer's judgment? It says 3.1% of you said yes. And it would be 96%. Oh, I think you mean said no. Yes. 96.9% of people do not trust the Keir Starmer's judgment. And the poll is still rising. I think we're almost at 3 million at the moment with the poll rising for Sir Keir Starmer. People who are not happy with his leadership at all. Grumpy Grandad says, I fly my union flag. We were talking about that. 365 days a year, and any he comes down to put up a new one. Not always an easy thing to do in Blackburn, especially when the riots happened, but it stayed up regardless. James says two-tier Keir is already committed to his assisted dying policy. It's called the removal of pensioners' winter fuel allowance. Ooh. Well, listen, I've got to say a huge thank you to my panel, political commentator Andy Williams. Andy, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Broadcaster and columnist Lizzie Cundy, thank you to you, Lizzie. And as ever, a huge thank you to you at home for your company. I'm back tomorrow, same time, same place. Up next, it's the Saturday 5. I'll leave you with the weather.
A nice bright morning will generate a lovely warm day, right through to the evening. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello, here's your latest weather update from the Met Office for GB News. Over the next few days, we'll see some rain at times, often quite blustery, and things will turn colder, albeit for a time, during the early part of the coming week. Low pressure's anchored towards the northwest of the UK at the moment, fairly tightly packed isobars, indicating those fairly blustery winds, and this weather front starting to move in from the far west there across Ireland and Northern Ireland. And we'll see outbreaks of rain here during the evening, some of that rain quite heavy, working from west to east. Towards the southeast, we hold on to mostly fine weather overnight, quite a bit of cloud around, but elsewhere it will go downhill. Outbreaks of rain moving in from the south and west, and again, some of that rain turning quite heavy, particularly across parts of England, Wales and Scotland into the early hours. By the end of the night, some clear weather towards the far northwest, and wherever you are, it's a mild and frost-free night. As for Sunday, well, unfortunately, it's an unsettled day to come. Bands of rain moving from west to east across all parts of the UK. Certainly to start the day on Sunday, some showery outbreaks of rain across the mainland of Scotland there. One or two brighter breaks in between, and quite a mild start to the day as well. For Northern Ireland, not faring too badly. Isolated showers, but some clear or sunny weather developing here during the early part of Sunday. And some clear to sunny weather across parts of Wales and the southwest, again with one or two showers around to start the day on Sunday. Further east and southeast, though, some more persistent bands of rain moving from west to east. And on the